Chapter 3109. Screech. A snake-like root forcefully tore apart the Shixian defensive formation and reached out from the formation. Under the power of the formation, the root shattered layer by layer, but it still managed to wrap around the leaf. Stay here. Su Fong teleported over. It was mainly for Goddess Luo that Su Fong ignored the danger and returned to the Shixian mountain. Now, after narrowly escaping death, Goddess Luo was taken away. Su Fong's eyes were about to crack. Terrifying flames burned in his eyes as he charged towards the leaf without any regard for the consequences. Die, you ant! The precious tree mother's cold voice that was like the heavenly Tao came from the green leaf. A terrifying intent turned into rays of green light that descended towards Su Fong. Boom, boom, boom. The green light directly attacked Su Fong's Tao heart, causing Su Fong's Tao heart to tremble, but it did not shatter. Su Fong's seven-colored Vajra Tao heart was already extremely sturdy. After fusing with the Ice Heart Flower and the immortal Heavenly Heart Stone, even though he did not cultivate the immortal Tao heart, it was still shockingly powerful. The precious tree mother did not put Su Fong, a void Tao cultivator, in her eyes. A casual intent attack would not be able to shake Su Fong's Tao heart. Such a powerful Tao heart. I didn't think that the human race would have such a genius. Since geniuses are rare and this seat has found a successor, I don't want to kill anyone and will spare you this time. The precious tree mother's voice was filled with surprise and shock. Then, her intent entered the root and it disappeared from the formation with a whoosh. Goddess. If I didn't lead that foreign race expert to the Shixian mountain, Goddess wouldn't have been taken away. Su Fong's heart was filled with anger, regret, and conflict. The main reason he returned to the Shixian mountain was to save Goddess Luo. Who knew after he successfully entered the Shixian mountain, Goddess Luo was taken away by a foreign race expert from the Daozu. How could he not be conflicted and fearful? Su Fong, it really is you? The sovereign's figure stepped out from the void. He looked at Su Fong with eyes full of joy. Wine Sage also flew back. He had not yet recovered from his serious injuries, and after the confrontation with the great Elder of Punishment just now, his injuries had been aggravated, and his aura was weak and listless. However, he was completely oblivious to his injuries. First, he looked at Su Fong in pleasant surprise. Then, as if realizing something, he let out a thunderous roar. You idiot! The Western Black Mountain was about to be broken through by the foreign races. Why did you come back now? I am a disciple of the Shixian Daozu. The other races are attacking Shixian Mountain. How can I remain uninvolved? Su Fong responded and suppressed the conflict inside. Jiu Zhongxing angrily said, You stupid brat! The sovereign also sighed. Su Fong, as long as you are alive, with your talent and potential, you might be able to continue the inheritance of the Shixian Mountain. Why are you so foolish now? They were all deeply moved and impressed by Su Fong's resolute action. However, rationally, they felt that Su Fong's actions were not worth it. Wine Sage asked, Su Fong, the one that the foreign race expert took away was your little Tao companion? Su Fong's expression dimmed. He nodded and said, Yes. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The leaders of the Shixian Mountain all appeared in the air. The great Elder of Punishment and Ningxue Peak Master were among them. Seeing these two people, Su Fong's eyes seemed to be sealed in ice. Wine Sage secretly sent a message to Su Fong. Su Fong, the great Elder of Punishment and Ningxue Peak Master are not weak. Do not be impulsive. Wait for your senior sect brother's strength to recover and then I will help you vent this anger. The sovereign was also secretly advising Su Fong. Su Fong, the Shixian Mountain is in danger. We need their support right now. This anger can only be endured for now. The great Elder of Punishment looked at Su Fong with an apologetic expression. Su Fong, I was careless just now and mistook you for a foreign race expert. Please do not blame me. The Ning Sui Peak Master also cupped her fists at Su Fong and said, I was too nervous and mistakenly thought that a powerful enemy had arrived. That was why I attacked you. Please do not take it to heart. I apologize to you here. Patian raised his eyebrows and shouted angrily, You did it on purpose just now. The great elder of punishment said indifferently, Patian, how dare you slander me like this? Su Fong's cold eyes swept over the great elder of punishment and Ning Sui Peak Master. He said coldly, You want to kill me but you ask me not to take it to heart. If I kill you, will you not take it to heart? The great elder of punishment shouted, Su Fong, do not be presumptuous. The Ning Sui Peak Master's expression darkened and she snorted. I said it was a misunderstanding, but you are so aggressive. You are really used to being arrogant and domineering. I am not a little elder like Chen Tianqing. How can I allow you to slander me like this? Seeing that you have just returned to the Xixian Mountain and your Taoist companion was taken away by a foreign race expert, I will not pursue your rudeness. If there is a next time. The sovereign raised his eyebrows. Just as he was about to speak, Su Fong's expression suddenly became ferocious. There is no need to wait for the next time. What you owe me, Su Fong, I will take it back 10 times over. You? The Ning Sui Peak Master sneered. Yes, I will. Su Fong's figure flashed and he pounced at the Ning Sui Peak Master. You overestimate yourself. I will teach you a lesson this time so you don't know what death is. The Ning Sui Peak Master's eyes were full of disdain. She released her mid-level Taoist saint cultivation and planned to severely injure Su Fong with one blow. On the heaven-chasing peak, Chen Tianqing saw this scene and sneered disdainfully. Su Fong has become more and more arrogant after these years. He dares to attack the Ning Sui Peak Master. He is asking for humiliation. The great elder of punishment also sneered, waiting to see Su Fong being severely injured. Boom! Su Fong directly punched out. The blood-evil Dharma body exploded with monstrous killing intent and power. At the same time, Slaughter's heart was also rumbling like a heavenly drum. The Ning Sui Peak Master's divine aura was instantly shattered layer by layer. Her body was like a leaf being swept away by a gust of wind. After being sent flying for thousands of miles, the Ning Sui Peak Master barely stabilized her body. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Then her body began to shatter layer by layer. At the same time, the sound of her Taoist heart shattering came from her body. Su Fong, the Ning Sui Peak Master looked at Su Fong in disbelief. She had thought that he was a weakling and did not take him seriously at all. Never would he have thought that the weakling he expected was actually a terrifying beast. The Ning Sui Peak Master's current mood was imaginable. The sovereign, sword supremacy, wine saint, and Patian, who had planned to protect Su Fong, were all stunned when they sensed Su Fong's energy and his extremely powerful attack. They knew that he was no weaker than an expert of the middle realm of Dao Saint. The other giants of Xixian and the many cultivators of Xixian Mountain below were all dumbfounded. Didn't you want to teach me a lesson? Su Fong shouted with murderous intent. He stepped out and appeared less than 100 miles away from the Ning Sui Peak Master. You secretly colluded with Hu people and made me fall into the trap of the cultivators of 6 paths heaven and the alien races. You wanted to use this to kill me. That punch just now is the interest of my revenge. Su Fong shouted domineeringly and punched out again. Boom! The Ning Sui Peak Master was sent flying again and spat out a mouthful of blood. This punch is the price you have to pay for attacking me sneakily and almost killing me. Su Fong was filled with murderous intent and anger. He stepped out again like a god of death and punched the Ning Sui Peak Master's body. Boom! The Ning Sui Peak Master's body was shattered and blood splattered everywhere. Sovereign, first elder of punishments. Save me! Swoosh! Swoosh! The heavily injured Ningxue Peak Master abandoned her body and teleported her 7 Dharma bodies in all directions. Su Fang used the My Lord's seal of 10 directions to seal all directions and instantly shackled the 7 Dharma bodies of the Ningxue Peak Master. The Ningxue Peak Master was also unlucky. Even if she lost to Su Fang with her full strength, she would not have lost so badly and completely. The main reason was that she had underestimated her opponent and thought that she could completely suppress Su Fang with her middle realm of divine saint cultivation. She did not expect Su Fang to be so powerful that it was beyond her imagination, and she was severely injured by Su Fang in the first place. In the end, the Ningxue Peak Master did not even have a chance to counterattack and was defeated by Su Fang. Su Fang, I will fight you to the death. The Ningxue Peak Master started to burn her thoughts and Dharma bodies and wanted to fight Su Fang to the death. It's too late to fight me to the death now, Su Fang said in a cold voice that was filled with killing intent and activated the Xian Bao's Rui Heavenly Dipper Wheel and the Cool Saber King. Chi. A cold light flashed. One of the Ningxue Peak Master's Dharma bodies had just activated countless black spikes and broke through the shackles of my master's 10 directions seal and rushed towards Su Fang like a tide. However, it was torn apart by the Cool Saber King. The saber radiance did not diminish and cut the Dharma body in half. The Rui Heavenly Dipper Wheel appeared above the Dharma body's head and was shackled by a distorted divine power. It was directly sent to Su Fang. If it wasn't for you, how could the Heavenly Lady be captured by the foreign race? For the Heavenly Lady, I will erase everything you have, Su Fang said murderously. A heaven-piercing blood king vine shot out from his palm and wrapped around the Dharma body and quickly devoured it. Boom boom boom. The Ningxue Peak Master lost her will to fight when 2 of her Dharma bodies were killed by Su Fang in an instant. How could she continue to fight Su Fang? She immediately burned her thoughts and Dharma bodies, as expected of a middle realm of divine saint cultivator. In a moment of desperation, she burned her thoughts and Dharma bodies and shattered the shackles of Su Fang's My Master's 10 directions seal. Erase them all. Su Fang was like a killing god. He released Gui Gui Tuxiu and that refined corpse from his body. At the same time, he also activated the blood coffin. Blood vines snaked out from his body. None of the remaining 5 Dharma bodies of the Ningxue Peak Master could escape. They were all killed by Su Fang. Even their physical bodies were devoured by the heaven-piercing blood king vine. You killed your fellow disciples. I will execute you. The great elder of punishments was enraged. He brazenly attacked Su Fang. The 50,000 thoughts transformed into an old man in a black robe. The elder was formed by the great Tao. He held a book in one hand and a brush in the other. The book exuded a unique great Tao aura of life and death. The brush was dripping with blood. It was a ghastly sight. The elder waved the brush and wrote a big word on the book. Then, the Xian Guang flashed and flew toward Su Fang. Die. Chapter 31:10. It was Ningxue Peak Master who had pulled strings for the first Elder of Punishment to collude with the Hu people. Moreover, when she met with Hu Po, Ningxue Peak Master had secretly communicated with Hu Po and obtained Hu Po's promise that once the Western Mystery Mountain was breached by the foreign tribes, the Hu people would try to protect Ningxue Peak Master and the first Elder of Punishment. Now that Ningxue Peak Master was dead, the first Elder of Punishment's chances of survival had been cut off. How could he not be furious? Therefore, the first Elder of Punishment used his most powerful ability to kill Su Fang in one fell swoop. Boom! A chaotic Xian Guang surged out of Su Fang's body and condensed into a light wheel. The monstrous aura of death that enveloped Su Fang instantly collapsed. The primordial heavenly wheel. The heavenly devourer insects had devoured so many foreign tribe treasures that the primordial aura they spat out was naturally astonishing. Su Fang merged with the primordial aura, causing the primordial aura in Su Fang's Tao Palace to become purer and more condensed. Naturally, its power also multiplied. The moment the primordial heavenly wheel appeared, it immediately shattered the shackles and surged toward the bloody word, death. After a series of collisions, the word, death, shattered layer by layer, and the primordial heavenly wheel also rapidly shattered. Su Fang was swept away by the shock waves of the collision and flew back thousands of miles. The first Elder of Punishment did not expect that his all-out attack would fail to kill Su Fang. He did not even suffer a light injury. Amidst his surprise and shock, the first Elder of Punishment's killing intent became even stronger. Swoosh! Swoosh! Su Fang recalled the wishful heavenly wheel and the cool saber sovereign and circled above his head. Gui Gui, the refined corpse, and the foreign tribe expert Tu Xiu flew behind Su Fang. Heaven-piercing blood king vines extended from Su Fang's body and waved wantonly. At this moment, Su Fang looked like a foreign tribe expert, exuding an evil, domineering, and lofty aura. First Elder of Punishment, what else can you do besides some tricks and sneak attacks? You're a great half-step Daozu, why don't you dare to fight me head-on? Su Fang looked at the first Elder of Punishment and shouted domineeringly. Not only was there no fear on his face, but he was also full of fighting spirit. You used an evil and despicable method to kill Peak Master Ning Chui. As the great Elder of Punishment, I must put you down. Being challenged and berated by a Dao Void stage cultivator in public, the Punishment Grand Elder was instantly enraged. The sovereign suddenly spoke in a dignified and cold voice. In your eyes, do you still have me, the sovereign of the Western Profound Mountain? Could it be that the Western Mystery Mountain is about to be destroyed, and all of you want to betray it? The head elder's heart trembled. Of course, he knew that the sovereign's words were directed at him. He let out a cold snort and teleported away. Su Fang's heart was boiling with killing intent, but he also knew that it was impossible for him to kill the Punishment Elder today. The great Elder of Punishments was a half-step Daozu. No matter how strong Su Fang was, he still couldn't shake him. Moreover, the great Elder of Punishments had a high position in the Western Profound Mountain. As long as he didn't betray the Western Profound Mountain, the sovereign wouldn't touch him. Su Fang could only give up on the idea and put Xian Bao, Tu Xiu, Refined Corpse, and Gui Gui into the Dao Palace. At this time, on the 1080th peak of the Western Profound Mountain, all the cultivators of the Western Profound Mountain were shocked. Countless people were exclaiming, "He can kill a Dao Saint at the upper stage of the Dao Void stage. How did Su Fang cultivate? If he becomes a Dao Saint, won't he be able to shake a Daozu expert? Our Western Mystery Mountain actually produced such a monstrous monster. If another 1,000,000 years passed, just how shocking would that be?" Su Fang's current strength is probably below a half-step Daozu. No one can suppress him. Strong, too strong. Who would have thought? No one would have thought that after 100,000 years, Su Fang's cultivation would reach the upper stage of the Dao Void stage. And his strength was so strong that he could kill the Ningxue Peak Master. Even the great Elder of Punishments couldn't do anything to him. In addition to the powerful Xian Bao and his subordinates, he also had 3 powerful subordinates that were comparable to middle-stage Dao Saint. Some people sighed and even snorted at Su Fang. No matter how strong Su Fang was, could he defeat the alien army? In the end, he would be destroyed along with the Western Profound Mountain. The peerless genius would also die prematurely. In time, Su Fang's future achievements will definitely surpass everyone. He might even become the peerless Daozu. Unfortunately, the alien race won't give him time to grow. The sovereign looked at Su Fang. His heart was in turmoil. At the same time, he felt pity for Su Fang. The Wine Saint and Yin Patian looked at Su Fang with gratified eyes, but at the same time, they felt a little ashamed. They were both disciples of the Western Profound Daozu. Su Fang's current strength was almost on par with the 2 Dao Saints. The 2 of them had cultivated for a long time, But Su Fang had only cultivated for a short time. How could they not feel ashamed? Suddenly the Sword Sovereign pointed at the defensive formation in the sky and exclaimed in disbelief, "The formation has stopped losing power. The primordial heavenly treasure of the devouring formation has been taken back by the alien race expert." Everyone looked over. Just as the Sword Sovereign had said, the defensive formation of the Western Profound Mountain was no longer being devoured. Although it was not as stable as before, the terrifying formation had stopped losing power. Whoosh! Exclamations of exclamations erupted from the mountain peaks as some cultivators cheered excitedly. Although the formation was no longer being devoured, it didn't mean that the Western Profound Mountain was safe. At least it could still hold on for a long time. At least it was a glimmer of hope in their despair. How could the cultivators of the Western Profound Mountain not be excited? The sovereign looked at Su Fang in disbelief. "Su Fang, it was you who stopped the alien race expert?" Su Fang nodded and said, "I only destroyed one of the treasured trees. Perhaps the alien race expert was afraid that the primordial heavenly treasure would continue to be damaged, so he took it back. I can finally take a breather." The wine saint took out a wine gourd and took a deep breath. Then he laughed loudly. Su Fang's original plan had finally been achieved. He was also very happy. But when he thought about how Goddess Luo had been taken away by the alien race Daozu, Su Fang's heart froze. At this time, the sovereign suddenly said, "Su Fang, you don't have to worry about your Dao companion." Su Fang asked in surprise, "Why?" The sovereign stroked his long beard and said with a smile, "You are too anxious. Think about it carefully. The Daozu tried to kill you with an intent attack, but you withstood it. What did the alien race Daozu say?" Su Fang thought about it carefully. His heart shook and his eyes lit up. The alien race Daozu said that because he found a successor, he didn't want to kill anyone. Could it be that he captured Goddess to take her as his successor? Unbelievable. No matter how he thought about it, it was unbelievable. That foreign race expert was a peerless existence at the peak of the Dao ancestor realm. He also possessed a primordial heavenly treasure. How high was Goddess Luo's cultivation level? She was also a human cultivator. Why would the alien race Daozu spend so much effort to take Goddess Luo as his successor? The wine saint laughed. "Su Fang, you are too worried. Think about it carefully. Why would the alien race Daozu capture your Dao companion for no reason? With that alien race woman's strength, not to mention Goddess Luo, even ordinary Dao saints would be able to kill her. It would be as easy as killing a group of ants. If she wanted to kill Goddess Luo, it would be easy. Why would she capture Goddess Luo? Even if his guess was wrong, Goddess Luo's life was definitely not in danger." Thinking about this, the heavy stone in Su Fang's heart was finally lifted. The sovereign looked at Su Fang and said, "Su Fang, come with me. I have something to discuss with you." Something to discuss? Su Fang was not surprised that the sovereign was so polite. He followed the sovereign to the main peak of the Western Mystery Mountain and entered the palace. Then he came to an independent space deep inside. It was Su Fang's first time coming to the sovereign's cave residence. He couldn't help but take a few more looks. The sovereign stood there and was silent for a long time. In the end, he sighed. "Soon, all of this will be taken over by the alien race." Sigh, Su Fang's heart also sank. After thinking for a while, Su Fang said, "Senior brother sovereign, I have a way to prevent the Western Mystery Mountain from being completely destroyed." The sovereign's eyes lit up. "Speak." Outside the formation, I heard the sovereign talking with the cultivators of the 5 god races. They just want my primordial heavenly treasure. You are willing to hand over your primordial heavenly treasure? The sovereign was very surprised. Su Fang said confidently, "If the Western Mystery Mountain can keep its inheritance, what is the harm in taking out the primordial heavenly treasure?" Su Fang had already merged with the longevity lamp. Even if the 5 god races took it, it was useless. Su Fang would have a way to take it back in the future. The sovereign shook his head. Even if you have the primordial heavenly treasure, the 5 god races won't agree without the time mirage from when the alien race Daozu failed to break through to the undying realm. Su Fang smiled. Senior brother sovereign, that Hu Pu is right. Master left the Western Mystery Mountain because of that mirage. He went to the outer realm chaos to break through to a higher realm. But what Hu Pu doesn't know is that I was the one who gave him the mirage. The sovereign's body shook. If another Void Dao realm cultivator said this to the sovereign would have slapped that cultivator. But how could Su Fang lie? Unbelievable. It was unbelievable. The sovereign looked Su Fang up and down. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. Su Fang, I have to suspect that you are the reincarnation of an undying realm cultivator from another race. You actually did so many heaven-defying things. Su Fang smiled embarrassedly. I was just lucky. Senior brother sovereign, can you make the deal with Hu Pu now? Let me think. The sovereign closed his eyes and sank into deep thought. After 6 hours, the sovereign slowly opened his eyes and denied Su Fang's idea. The 5 god races are greedy. Even if they get the primordial heavenly treasure and time mirage, they won't fulfill their promise. Those 10,000 Western Mystery Mountain cultivators will most likely become slaves of the 5 god races. After a pause, the sovereign continued, if Hu Pu knows you are in the Western Mystery Mountain, why would he let you leave alive? You are the true inheritance of the Western Mystery Mountain. As long as you are alive, the Western Mystery Mountain has hope. Even if all the cultivators in the Western Mystery Mountain die, they will not let you die. Then what should we do? Your idea has reminded me of something. I have an idea. You will know about it after I gather the upper echelons for a discussion. Chapter 31:11. Wine Saint, En Patian, and the cultivators of the strange Silence Peak were all waiting for Su Fang. Seeing Su Fang, the subordinates of the strange Silence Peak all knelt down. Wine Saint and En Patian asked about Su Fang's experiences in the past few years, but Su Fang brushed it off. Su Fang took out a large amount of resources and gave them to Wine Saint and En Patian. After being trapped in the Western Mystery Mountain for so many years, all the cultivators had used up a lot of resources. Wine Saint and En Patian just happened to be lacking resources, so Su Fang helped them in their hour of need. Su Fang also used the heaven-piercing blood King Vine to devour the corpse of the last Dao Saint of the foreign races. After refining it, he turned it into pure life energy and sealed it for Wine Saint. Wine Saint's vitality was greatly damaged in the Battle of South Mystery. Su Fang gave him half of Daozu's blood, but he still hadn't fully recovered to this day. With the life energy of an upper Dao Saint and the various pills and resources given by Su Fang, it would be of great help to him. After sending off Wine Saint and En Patian, Su Fang entered the strange Silence Peak and began to recover and cultivate. Just as Su Fang killed Ningxue Peak Lord, the Treasured Tree Godmother took away the 12 treasured trees outside the defensive formation of the Western Mystery Mountain. Daozu of the 3-eyed black demon race flew over, Godmother of the Treasured Tree. What happened just now? The Western Mystery Mountain hasn't been breached yet, so why did you put away your primordial heavenly treasure? Godmother of the Treasured Tree coldly said, among the human cultivators, there is someone with heavenly devouring insects that can counter my 12 treasured trees. That human cultivator and the cultivators of the 5 god races took the opportunity to sneak into the treasured trees, causing my treasured trees to lose a lot of energy. If I don't put them away now, they might be damaged again. The human ants of the 5 god races are secretly helping the human cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain? They're courting death. Daozu of the 3-eyed black devil race's 3 eyes simultaneously shot out cold black light. More than half of the Western Mystery Mountain's defensive formation has already been devoured by this sovereign's treasured tree. With your strength, breaking through the Western Mystery Mountain won't be a difficult matter. It will only take you 1,000 years. I can only help you this much. You can consider it as fulfilling my promise to that person." The three-eyed black demon Daozu politely said, "Thank you, precious tree mother. I was also entrusted by someone. Plus, I found a suitable successor for this trip to the human world, so this trip was not in vain." At this point, joy appeared in the precious tree mother's eyes. "You just attacked the Western Black Mountain. How did you find a successor in such a short time?" The three-eyed Black Devil Clan's elder was not surprised. "Now that the opportunity has arrived, everything will happen naturally. I wonder what kind of person the human cultivator with the heavenly devourer insects is? Could it be a Daozu of the human race?" "It's not a Daozu, it's an upper Dao void realm cultivator. This person is truly extraordinary. In the future, he will definitely become a powerful expert of the human race." Dao Void Realm Cultivator? An ant-like Dao Void Realm Cultivator can actually damage the primordial heavenly treasure? I've reminded you before that you shouldn't underestimate the human race. This time, I was careless and suffered a loss. By the way, I'll remind you again. Before we came to the human world, the wise man of my race had deduced that the human world would be difficult to destroy. That's all I have to say. Farewell." Once the precious tree mother finished speaking, her figure turned into nothingness and disappeared without a trace. The human world will not be destroyed? Could it be that Shi Xian Daozu really has a chance to take that step? Daozu of the three-eyed black devil race was startled. Then, he let out a gloomy sneer. "Even if Shi Xian Daozu becomes an immortal, he will not be able to stop the pace of my race. The human world will be destroyed." Next, the foreign race army began to attack the defensive formation of Shixian Mountain one after another. More than half of the formation had been devoured by the 12 treasure trees. Now that it was under the fierce attack of the foreign race army, coupled with peerless experts of Daozu's level, it quickly became dangerous. According to the current speed of breaking the formation, it would take at most 1,000 years for the Shixian Mountain's defensive formation to be broken. At that time, without the protection of the formation, the cultivators of Shixian Mountain would become pigs and sheep for the foreign race to slaughter. The cultivators of Shixian Mountain once again fell into despair and panic. About 100 years later, the sovereign suddenly summoned the higher-ups for a meeting. Su Fang was also called to the main hall. The Shixian Mountain had a total of 9 Dao Saints. Ningxue Peak Master was killed by Su Fang, so there were only 8 left. With Su Fang's current strength, he was naturally qualified to participate in the meeting. The sovereign said in a low voice, "I'm sure everyone is very clear about the current situation, so I won't say more. Now that things have reached this point, we have to face reality. I've decided to choose a day to break out. Each Dao Saint will lead a group of Shixian Mountain disciples to break out from different directions." Break out? Rather than wait for the Shixian Mountain to be broken, it was better to take the initiative to break out. However, they were heavily surrounded by foreign race cultivators, and there were more than a dozen Daozu experts. The so-called breakout was just a last-ditch struggle. Very few would be able to escape. Now that things have reached this point, this is the only way. If we are going to die, we will die with a bang. Sword Sovereign suddenly stood up. His white beard fluttered as a sharp aura surged out. The other Dao Saints also had resolute looks on their faces. The Sovereign continued, "You all lead the disciples to break out. I will stay behind and use the formation to stall the foreign race army and fight for a chance of survival for you all." Wine Saint hurriedly shouted, "Senior Brother Sovereign, you must not." Su Fang was also shocked. He looked at the Sovereign with deep respect. Although the chance of breaking out was not high, there was still a glimmer of hope. Staying in the Shixian Mountain meant certain death. How many people could give up themselves to fight for a chance of survival for others? The Sovereign smiled and slowly said, "Could it be that I have been the Sovereign for so long that I don't even dare to die? I am the eldest disciple of the Daozu, the sovereign of the Xixian mountain. Even if I die, I will die with the Xixian mountain. I have already made up my mind. There is no need to say any more. In 500 years, before the defense formation is about to be broken, listen to my orders and break out with all your strength. Sword Sovereign sighed and no longer spoke. He silently cupped his fists towards the sovereign and then slowly disappeared into the void. Head Elder of Punishments and the other Dao saints also bowed towards the sovereign and then left the palace. Just as Su Fang was about to leave, the sovereign suddenly sent a voice transmission. Su Fang, come with me. Then the sovereign got up and brought Su Fang to a cave in the depths of the palace. Su Fang, how many people do you think have a chance of breaking out? The moment they entered the cave, the sovereign got straight to the point. Su Fang thought about it and replied, less than 10%. Less than 10%? The sovereign revealed a bitter smile and said calmly, it is not less than 10%, but there is no hope of breaking out. The Xixian mountain will not be able to escape this time. No one will be able to escape. Sovereign, then why did you make such a decision? Su Fang looked at the sovereign in surprise. No one else has a chance of escaping, but you are an exception. You were able to enter the Xixian mountain from the foreign race army. You will definitely be able to break out of the Xixian mountain. There is no hope. I was able to enter the Xixian mountain because the foreign race experts were unprepared. There is no hope of getting out. The sovereign looked at Su Fang and said slowly, if everyone breaks out with all their strength and attracts the attention of the foreign race experts, you will also have a chance of breaking out. Sovereign, that's right. I said that you are the only hope of the Xixian mountain. My plan to break out is actually to cover your escape and create a chance for you. Su Fang was deeply shocked. Just as he was about to dissuade the sovereign waved his hand and took out a black storage ring. The storage ring gave off an ancient presence. There was an image of the Xixian mountain carved on it. It was clearly not an ordinary item. This is the sovereign's ring of the western Xian mountain. It contains the accumulation of the Xixian mountain over countless years. When the time comes, take the sovereign's ring. I will also pick 10,000 genius disciples from the various sects and take them with me. Sovereign! The sovereign shouted. The inheritance of the Xixian mountain is all with you. If you continue to refuse, you will be cutting off the inheritance of the Xixian mountain. Yes, senior brother sovereign. Su Fang took the sovereign's ring. His eyes were filled with tears. Go, if you see Master in the future, tell him that although my eldest disciple's cultivation is lacking, he has never lost face for him. Yes, Su Fang will remember. Su Fang flew out of the space. This farewell would be the final farewell. When he touched the barrier, Su Fang suddenly turned around and cupped his fists towards the sovereign. He bowed deeply and then passed through the array without looking back. All the cultivators of the Xixian mountain received the news that they were about to break out. The entire Xixian mountain fell into a dead silence. Everyone's heart was filled with despair. Some people were dispirited and even had their wills crumbled. Others had completely abandoned everything and were determined to die. Time passed day by day. About 200 years later, the alien army suddenly stopped attacking the array. Two figures flew out of the army and headed towards the outside of the array. It was Hu Po and the Dao Saint of the Yi clan from the 5 divine races. The others were nowhere to be seen. The 2 Dao Saints no longer had the arrogance and loftiness they had when they came to the Xixian mountain. Instead, their faces were dark and their eyes were filled with anger and helplessness. It turned out, because Su Fang had controlled the Yi clan cultivators to sneak into the treasure tree was damaged. The alien army had no choice but to attack the barrier of the Xixian mountain. The higher-ups of the alien race were furious. The 5 divine races could not escape suspicion and were all shackled. 3 of their cultivators were even eaten by the experts of the alien race on the spot. If they were not afraid of the Tensei people behind the 5 divine races, Hu Po and the other Tao saints would not have been able to survive. This time, Hu Po had taken the initiative to suggest that the spies in the Shixian mountain could cooperate with the alien army. That was why the higher-ups of the alien race had sent him out. "Tell the higher-ups of the Shixian mountain to come out and see me," Hu Po shouted coldly at the array. After an incense stick's worth of time, the sovereign, sword supremacy, and first elder of punishments thoughts flashed out of the array and quickly transformed into human forms. "Hu Po, I was just about to try to contact you. I agree to the conditions you mentioned before." Chapter 31:12. Hu Po's purpose in coming here this time was not for the time mirage or the grand mist heavenly treasure, but for another unspeakable purpose. Who would have thought? The sovereign had agreed to the conditions so easily, which meant that the Western Mystery Mountain had these 2 treasures. Both Hu Po and the Yi Clan Tao Saint were pleasantly surprised that they were about to obtain these 2 treasures. Not only were they able to contact the head elder of the Western Mystery Mountain, but they also made a deal. How could they not be surprised? Who knew? The sovereign continued. "I can give you the time mirage and the primordial heavenly treasure, but you have to take away 50,000 disciples from the Western Mystery Mountain." 50,000? Hu Po raised his brows and rejected. 50,000 is too much. The other races won't agree to let the 5 god clans take away so many people. At most 20,000. In reality, he was laughing coldly in his heart. Not to mention 50,000, as long as he could get the treasures, he would even dare to agree to 500,000. As for whether or not he would fulfill his promise, that was another matter. However, in order to avoid the sovereign's suspicions, Hu Po naturally couldn't agree too quickly. The sovereign thought for a while and then nodded. Then it's settled. After 500 years, I will bring the treasures and 20,000 Western Mystery Mountain cultivators to you. After that, the sovereign's figure turned into nothingness and the thoughts of the other Western Mystery Mountain higher-ups also disappeared. Hu Po sent a voice transmission to the Yi Clan Tao Saint. "What did the spy say? Luckily I came this time. I didn't think the Western Mystery Mountain would try to make a final gamble." What was even more unexpected was that not only did Su Fong not die, he also entered the Western Mystery Mountain not long ago and destroyed the primordial heavenly treasure of the precious tree Divine Mother. The Yi Clan Tao Saint gritted his teeth. When Hu Po was making the deal with the sovereign, the Yi Clan Tao Saint had been secretly communicating with the head elder of the punishments. In order to survive, the head elder of the punishments told the Yi Clan Tao Saint that Su Fong had returned to the Western Mystery Mountain and that the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were preparing to forcefully break out in 500 years. Su Fong didn't die? Was it Su Fong who caused the 5 god clans to take the blame and be killed by the foreign races? Hu Po was in disbelief at first, then a fierce killing intent surged out of his body. They had yet to take revenge, and now Su Fong had conned them once more. How could Hu Po and the Yi race Tao Saint not be furious? Su Fong is trapped in Shixian Mountain. This time, he won't be able to escape no matter what. The Tao Saint of the Yi race was also filled with killing intent. Hu Po said darkly, "It seems that the sovereign of the Western Black Mountain is planning to break out of the encirclement 500 years from now when he makes a deal with the Hu people. He doesn't really plan to make a deal with the 5 divine races. Fortunately, we have spies in the Western Mystery Mountain. Otherwise, the 5 great divine clans would be used by the Western Mystery Mountain again, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Now that we know about the Western Mystery Mountain scheme, they won't be able to do much. As long as we tell this news to the higher-ups of the foreign races, they will be able to resolve their anger. When the time comes, we should think of a way to get the time mirage and the primordial heavenly treasure. It would be best if Su Fong could be among the 20,000 geniuses. If we don't kill Su Fong, how can we resolve our hatred?" Hu Po and the Tao Saint of the Yi race were very pleased and left the Western Mystery Mountain in embarrassment. After the higher-ups of the foreign races received the news from Hu Po, the attacks of the foreign races were not as fierce as before. They planned to wait 500 years for the Western Mystery Mountain to break out of the encirclement and kill all the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain. After the sovereign returned to the main peak of the Western Mystery Mountain, he immediately sent out orders to pick out geniuses from the various peaks. After many rounds of selection, 20,000 geniuses were chosen from the cultivators below the Tao Master level. As for cultivators above the Tao Master level, not a single one was chosen. After the selection was confirmed, the sovereign ordered people to secretly send the list of candidates from each peak to Su Fang for Su Fang to look over. Su Fang looked over the list of 20,000 people, and then put away the jade slip that stored the list. His mood became very heavy. In fact, Su Fang's Xian Bo space and the heavenly Tao Dharma body could even fit all the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain. However, the sovereign only chose 20,000 people, and they were all the seedlings of the Western Mystery Mountain. The strong cultivators were arranged to break out of the encirclement. His goal was to create an opportunity for Su Fang. Su Fang was silent for a while, and then left the strange silence peak and went to the Wine Saint peak. After seeing the Wine Saint, Su Fang very tactfully asked the Wine Saint to go with him when they broke out of the encirclement. The Wine Saint had understood the sovereign's intentions since a long time ago. Now that Su Fang had said this, the Wine Saint's heart was even clearer. Senior brother might have a chance to survive if he takes the cultivators of the Wine Saint Peak with him. You're a tall tree that attracts the wind, and I'll be unlucky if I follow you. Su Fang, are you trying to harm me? Ha ha. The Wine Saint laughed heartily and refused Su Fang's good intentions without the slightest hesitation. Su Fang understood the Wine Saint's thoughts as well, and his heart grew heavier and heavier with a strand of sorrow. Senior brother, take care of yourself. Su Fang cupped his fists and bowed to the Wine Saint and was about to bid farewell. Wait a moment. The Wine Saint suddenly spoke, and then he teleported away. No one knew where he went. An hour later, the Wine Saint returned to the Wine Saint Peak and pulled out a figure from his palm. It was a woman around the age of 30. Her appearance was very ordinary, and her cultivation was at the intermediate Tao Lord realm. However, the Wine Saint's gaze towards the woman was filled with tenderness and reluctance. She's the daughter of another master of mine before I became a disciple of my master. She's always had feelings for me, but I'm addicted to wine and have never cared about the feelings between men and women, so I've let her down. It's too late for regrets now. If there's reincarnation, I'd rather become a mortal and stay with her for the rest of my life. Su Fang, senior brother, has no other request. Take her away and let her live a peaceful life. Then, senior brother can die without regrets. Please. The Wine Saint bowed deeply towards Su Fang. Su Fang hurriedly returned the bow and took the woman into the Tao Palace before silently leaving the Wine Saint Peak. After that, Su Fang went to visit the heaven-breaking peak, but Yin Patian wasn't there. When Su Fang returned to the strange silence peak, he didn't expect Yin Patian to be waiting for him there. Yin Patian had something that he needed Su Fang's help with, and he hoped that Su Fang could take his son away. Because Yin Potion's son was a Tao Profound Realm cultivator, he wasn't amongst the 20,000. Yin Patian had witnessed the formidable strength Su Fang revealed, and he was very clearly aware that his son would only have a chance to survive if he followed Su Fang. So, he'd specially come to the strange silence peak to ask Su Fang for help. Su Fang naturally agreed readily. Su Fang, I owe you another huge favor. Looks like I won't have the chance to repay it. Yin Patian cupped his fists towards Su Fang in a solemn manner, and then he left in an extremely graceful manner. In the following period of time, Su Fang settled down in Fu Yao's manor, and he adjusted his cultivation and various abilities to their peak states. In another 500 years, It would be a great battle that had a slim chance of survival, and it might even be a great battle that had no chance of survival. Even Su Fong didn't have much confidence to be able to kill his way out of the foreign race's encirclement alive. Su Fong had also divined the future before, but the matter was related to the Western Profound Mountain, and it was also related to the foreign races more than Ten Daozu and Peak Daozu. He couldn't deduce much useful information at all. The only thing he could do was to do his best and risk his life. About 200 years later, a green-clothed woman came to the strange Silence Peak. It was Ling Qinyue. Su Fong didn't expect that Ling Qinyue would actually come to the strange Silence Peak and request to see Su Fong. Condensing a thought, she turned into a phantom and arrived outside the strange Silence Peak. Ling Qinyue, what is it? Ling Qinyue looked at Su Fong with a bitter gaze, and then sent a thought to Su Fong. Old ancestor told me to come see you and give you something. Old ancestor? Su Fong was startled, and then realized that Ling Qinyue was the sovereign's descendant. The old ancestor she spoke of was the sovereign. Ling Qinyue took out a treasure bottle and flew it to Su Fong. Su Fong sent his consciousness into the treasure bottle and found that it was a spatial xian bao. There were 20,000 cultivators inside, and they were the 20,000 Western Profound Mountain saplings that were preparing to leave with Su Fong. There's still some time before we break out. Why did Senior Brother Sovereign send them over now? Su Fong wasn't surprised. Immediately realizing something, Su Fong's divine light changed slightly, and he released a divine aura that swept Ling Qinyue and the treasure bottle into the strange Silence Peak. In less than an incense stick's worth of time, a supreme will and divine aura descended, enveloping the Western Profound Mountain's 1,080 peaks. Then the sovereign's majestic voice sounded in the minds of every Western Profound Mountain cultivator. Everyone, prepare yourselves. In 6 hours we will break out with all our strength. Break out? Isn't there still 300 years before we can break out? Why did the sovereign suddenly change his mind? Many Western Profound Mountain cultivators were shocked and stunned. Su Fong knew what was going on. The sovereign was in charge of the Western Profound Mountain. Just how cunning was he? Although the sovereign didn't ask about the head elder of punishments colluding with the Hu people, he was already on guard. He announced the time of breakout in advance, and then made an agreement with the 5 god clans just to let the head elder of punishments leak the news to confuse the 5 god clans and the foreign races. Suddenly moving the time of breakout in advance meant that they would be able to kill the foreign races by surprise, increasing their chances of breaking out. Senior Brother Sovereign really put a lot of thought into this. Su Fong sighed in his heart and was full of admiration for the sovereign. Lord Sovereign, why do you change your orders and move the time of breakout in advance? What about the deal with the 5 god clans? The head elder of punishment's angry voice suddenly sounded. He also saw the sovereign's intentions and realized that he and the 5 god clans had been tricked by the sovereign. How could he remain calm? He started to question the sovereign in front of everyone. The sovereign replied coldly, Head Elder of Punishments, you colluded with the 5 god clans and the 5 god clans have become the foreign race's slaves. Do you think this seat doesn't know? Do you think this seat is an idiot or are you too stupid? Sovereign, this seat is also doing this for the Western Profound Mountain. For the Western Profound Mountain. The sovereign sneered coldly. Considering that you've worked hard for the Western Mystery Mountain all your life, and now that the Western Mystery Mountain is in a life-and-death situation, this seat will not pursue this matter any further. When we break out of the encirclement, you can fend for yourself. Chapter 31:13. The Sovereign actually let go of the Great Elder of Punishment. He is still not ruthless enough. Su Fong's heart was filled with a fierce aura. If there was a chance, Su Fong would definitely kill the first Elder of Punishments. However, he didn't have time to pay attention to the Punishment Grand Elder. Su Fang quickly sucked all the cultivators of the strange silence peak into the Tao Palace and prepared to break out. 3 hours passed in the blink of an eye. The plan to break out is as follows. Listen up. The sovereign used his divine might to transmit a detailed plan to all the peak masters. Is everything clear? Break out of the encirclement. I wish you all good luck. The sovereign's thunderous voice echoed through every corner of the Western Mystery Mountain with the help of the power of the world. Swish, swish. Groups of cultivators rose into the sky from the 1,080 peak. Under the leadership of the peak lords, the elites of each mountain either activated their powerful Xian Bao or formed a formation and flew towards the Western Mystery Mountain. As for those ordinary disciples and outer court disciples with cultivations below the Daolord realm, all of them had entered the Xian Bao space. They were utterly useless in such a battle, and not only would they give their lives away for nothing, they would even be a burden to the other experts as they tried to break out of the encirclement. Su Fang also disguised himself as an ordinary disciple, even changing his appearance. He followed the crowd and flew towards the Western Black Mountain's defensive array. Su Fang, whether or not Xixian Mountain can continue its legacy is all up to you. The sovereign suddenly sent a thought to Su Fang. Su Fang replied, As long as I, Su Fang, am here, the Western Black Mountain's legacy will never be severed. If that's the case, I can be at ease. Remember, do not be soft-hearted. You only need to run for your life. No matter what happens to the Western Black Mountain and the other cultivators, you must not turn back. Yes, Su Fang could only grit his teeth and agree. He carried the future of the Western Black Mountain on his shoulders. If he was soft-hearted during the breakout, no one would be able to escape. Outside the defensive array of the Western Black Mountain, the foreign army was still attacking the enchantment barrier, but it was clearly not as ferocious as before. Only one expert of the foreign race at the upper level of Divine Saint was commanding the 100,000 foreign race cultivators to attack and wear down the defensive formation. Suddenly, boom! The defensive formation suddenly trembled violently, erupting with a wave of dense fog. In an instant, it swept out in all directions, covering an area of 50,000 kilometers around the Western Mystery Mountain and continuing to extend into the distance. The Western Black Mountain was like a sleeping beast that had suddenly opened its ferocious mouth. The 100,000 foreign race cultivators were caught off guard and were swallowed by the mist. The fog released by the formation not only had the ability to lose one's senses, but also had a special ability that targeted the non-human races, causing the power and life of the non-human cultivators to drain rapidly. Swish, swish. The sovereign personally controlled the formation. Tens of millions of Western Mystery Mountain cultivators passed through the formation and then charged in different directions without any regard for anything else. The foreign race army that was trapped in the fog fell into a state of panic. The leading foreign Tao Saint was easily killed by Sword Sovereign's sword formation. The other foreign race cultivators were also killed by the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain, who came out from behind. The foreign races had originally thought that the Western Mystery Mountain was already in the bag. In addition, Hupa had promised that the Western Mystery Mountain would only break out after several hundred years, and that there were spies in the Western Mystery Mountain, so they had let down their guard. In addition, the foreign race army was made up of more than a dozen races and was already rather loose. Under the fierce attacks of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators, some cultivators managed to break through the first line of defense. The humans have begun to break out. Block them. Don't let a single one escape. The Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race's furious voice instantly spread throughout the entire foreign race army. Only then did the foreign race army react. Many powerful cultivators came out of their encampment and stopped the foreign race cultivators from attacking the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators. Swoosh, swoosh. Hupo, the Tao Saint of the Yi race, and the other cultivators of the 5 god races flew into the air from their palaces. Seeing the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators charging out of the fog, Hoopoe and the others were shocked and surprised. Hoopoe let out a thunderous roar. "We've been tricked. The sovereign of the Western Mystery Mountain is actually so despicable." The Tao Saint of the Yi race also shouted angrily. "That punishment elder really deserves to die. This person is clearly working with the Western Mystery Mountain to set up this trap. If I catch him, I will definitely tear him into pieces." Suddenly the powerful will of a peak expert of the Daozu suddenly descended and enveloped the cultivators of the 5 god races. The voice of the Daozu of the 3-eyed black demon race was filled with killing intent. "Cultivators of the 5 god races, is this what you meant by working together?" Hoopoe hurriedly said, "My lord, please listen to my explanation. For the sake of the Tensei people, not only did I not kill you, I even made things easy for you again and again. You lowly ants have repeatedly challenged my limit. First, you destroyed the treasure tree of the precious tree Divine Mother. Now you've deceived me. Do you think that I won't dare to kill you because you have the protection of the Tensei people? My lord, this is a misunderstanding." The Daozu of the 3-eyed black demon race was furious. How could he still listen to Hoopoe's explanation? A black Xian Guang instantly wrapped around a dozen cultivators of the 5 god races. After a series of screams, the Tao Saints, including Hoopoe, were all turned into ashes by the black Xian Guang that contained the power to annihilate everything. There were many experts in the foreign race army. Although they were caught off guard by the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators, they quickly reacted and surrounded the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators who had broken through the first line of defense. More and more experts of the foreign race charged back. There were too many experts of the foreign race. There were more than 100 Tao Saints alone. How many Tao Saints did the Western Mystery Mountain have? Even if the Daozu did not attack, the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators would not be able to shake them. Soon, the foreign race army stabilized their footing and forced the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators back. They gradually retreated into the area covered by the Western Mystery Mountain's formation. A bunch of lowly ants. You still want to struggle before you die. All of you die. A half-step Daozu of the savage flood dragon race sent the wine sage flying with a claw attack. The aftershock tore hundreds of Western Mystery Mountain cultivators into pieces. Then, he let out a savage laugh and charged toward the Western Mystery Mountain's formation. At this time, all of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators had charged out. The defensive formation was only controlled by the sovereign and would not be able to last for long. The half-step Daozu of the savage flood dragon race planned to break through the formation and take the credit. Who knew the moment the half-step Daozu of the savage flood dragon race stepped into the formation's divine power, the formation's divine power turned into a monstrous bolt of lightning that surged toward him. He did not have any chance to resist, and was directly turned into dust. Although the Western Profound Mountain didn't have a Daofather guarding it, it was still the foundation that Daofather Shi Xian had built up over countless years. The grand formation of the Western Profound Mountain didn't just have defensive capabilities, it also had incomparably powerful offensive capabilities. At this moment, the sovereign did not hesitate to burn his thoughts to activate the formation. The offensive power he displayed completely surpassed his own cultivation and reached the level of a Daozu. Killing a half-step Daozu of the foreign race was extremely easy. The foreign cultivators that charged into the area covered by the formation all died under the divine power of the formation activated by the sovereign. The foreign race cultivators were all shocked and quickly retreated. The morale of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators was greatly boosted. They changed directions according to their previous plan and charged toward the weakest part of the foreign race's defense. When they had decided to break through, Su Fang had told the sovereign all the useful information he had obtained from Tu Xiu. The sovereign had made a detailed plan based on the foreign race's defense. Moreover, the sovereign had purposely revealed the plan to the head elder of punishments in advance, so that he could pass it on to the 5 god races to confuse the foreign race army. The previous breakout was also to confuse the foreign race army and distract the foreign race expert. Only now did he reveal his true intentions. The Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were focused on attacking the weakest part of the foreign race army. It was also where the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were going to break through. Western Mystery Mountain cultivators, I'll send you on your way. Take care. The sovereign's thunderous voice came from the Western Mystery Mountain. Boom, boom, boom. The fog formed by the Western Mystery Mountain's formation roiled violently and quickly formed a 1,000-foot-wide stone bridge. It gave off an ancient aura and quickly extended out. Wherever the ancient bridge went, it was unstoppable and unstoppable, shattering the layers of formations that sealed off the Western Black Mountain. The material that the foreign races had set up their camp was also shattered by the impact of the ancient bridge. Countless foreign race cultivators were shaken to death. The sovereign had condensed the Western Mystery Mountain's origin energy into this ancient bridge. Its power was unparalleled. However, the 1,080 peaks of the Western Mystery Mountain, including the main peak, were rapidly withering. The sovereign presiding over the formation on the main peak was also dispirited. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The Western Mystery Mountain cultivators flew onto the ancient bridge and charged toward the foreign race army. Break for this seat. A Tao ancestor expert from the savage Flood Dragon clan soared into the sky and blocked in front of the ancient bridge. It opened its mouth and spat out a ghastly white light, which turned into a terrifying skeletal giant. It was over 1,000 feet tall and emitted a ferocious and savage aura. It pushed its arms toward the ancient bridge with all its might. Boom! The speed at which the ancient bridge extended suddenly slowed down. However, in the next moment, the ancient bridge once again erupted with an aura that was comparable to that of a powerful Tao ancestor. It shattered the white bone giant into pieces and scattered everywhere. The Daozu expert of the savage dragon race also spat out blood and teleported to the side. Countless foreign race cultivators attacked the cultivators on the ancient bridge. However, the aura emitted by the ancient bridge formed a powerful enchantment around them. Even the cultivators at the peak of the divine saint realm could not shake it. The Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were about to break out of the encirclement. As long as they did, the foreign race army's plan to kill all the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators would fail. A small portion of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators would be able to escape. The Western Mystery Mountain cultivators on the ancient bridge were all excited and nervous. Suddenly the ancient bridge suddenly trembled violently and stopped extending forward. It started to collapse layer by layer. Chapter 31:14. They never would have thought that just as they were about to succeed, the sovereign would be ambushed by the head elder of punishments, causing their plan to fail. On the main peak of the Western Mystery Mountain, the sovereign was sitting in the center of the array formation. There was a fist-sized wound on his heart and blood kept pouring out. A thick aura of death lingered around the wound and kept seeping into his heart. Not only was the wound hard to heal, it was also crazily corroding his life force. In such a state, the sovereign couldn't even protect his own life, let alone continue to activate the array formation. The head elder of punishments stood in the air 1,000 feet away. His aura was also weak. One of his arms was missing and a third of his head had been cut off by the sword. He looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. He laughed proudly. "Sovereign, didn't you want me to die on my own? Of course I want to live. If I destroy your plan, why would the foreign race cultivators kill me? Not only will they not kill me, they will even reward me heavily." Ha ha! The sovereign closed his eyes in despair. While the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were trying their best to break out, Su Fong charged in different directions. In fact, all of the sovereign's plan was for Su Fong. Breaking out at full force was just an illusion. The goal was to attract the foreign race cultivators and create a chance for Su Fong to break out. Su Fong's face seemed to be frozen, and there was a sense of tragedy in his eyes. The sovereign used all of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators to give him hope of breaking out. This made his heart heavier than it had ever been. Seeing that they were about to reach the foreign race's encirclement, all of the foreign race cultivators' attention was drawn to the place where the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were breaking out. The truly powerful cultivators were all attracted over as well. As a result, the foreign race cultivators didn't even notice Su Fong's arrival. Suddenly hundreds of Western Mystery Mountain cultivators charged out from behind and on both sides. Su Fong was caught off guard and activated black chain-like Xian Bao, forming a huge cage that shackled Su Fong inside. Cultivators from the Punishment Hall? You actually betrayed the Western Mystery Mountain. Su Fong didn't expect that the ones who ambushed him were actually cultivators from the Punishment Hall, and among them were 3 elders. What was even more unexpected to Su Fong was that he had deliberately changed his appearance. In order to prevent Hu Pu and the other cultivators from the 5 divine clans from seeing through his disguise, he had even changed his aura. A Punishment Hall elder proudly said, "Su Fong, you have left an imprint of your primordial spirit in the Punishment Hall. The hall has your aura. Even if you change your appearance, don't even think about escaping from the hall. Do you think it's that easy to shackle my Su Fong?" Su Fong used the formless heavenly wheels and the cool saber monarch in an attempt to break through the shackles. Who knew the formation cage that the Punishment Hall cultivators had conjured with their profound treasures was incredibly powerful. Su Fong's attacks landed on the surrounding cage, but he was unable to shake it in a short period of time. Furthermore, they didn't intend to suppress Su Fong. Instead, they used the formation to trap Su Fong and didn't attack Su Fong. Su Fong shouted angrily, "As cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain, why did you betray the Western Mystery Mountain?" A Punishment Hall elder sneered, "The Western Mystery Mountain has already been destroyed. The laws of the Western Mystery Mountain have also lost their restraint. How can we betray them? The Great Elder said that only by capturing you and offering you to the 5 divine clans, we have a way out." Another elder shouted domineeringly, "Su Fong, you can only blame yourself for being too arrogant in the past. You didn't take the Punishment Hall seriously and offended the 5 divine clans and the foreign race expert. Most importantly, your life can save our lives." Su Fong sneered, "You weaklings want to capture me, Su Fong? Don't tell me you have forgotten so quickly how Peak Master Ning Tsue died?" Thinking of the scene where Su Fong killed Peak Master Ning Tsue, all the Punishment Hall cultivators' expressions changed instantly. Their eyes were filled with fear. An elder sneered, "Su Fong, I have to admit that with your strength it is difficult for us to suppress you. However, we don't expect to kill you. We just want to hold you here and wait for the foreign race experts to arrive. Only a despicable person like the Great Elder of the Punishment Hall would have subordinates like you," Su Fong said murderously. A gush of primordial qi surged out of Su Fong's body. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Su Fong wanted to end this quickly. He wanted to use the primordial heavenly wheel to shatter the shackles and quickly get rid of the Punishment Hall traitors. However, it was too late. The commotion here had attracted the attention of the foreign race army. There were 3 foreign race Dao Saint. One of them was an expert from the Irontail race. His strength was at the peak of the Dao Saint realm. He led thousands of foreign race cultivators and charged over. The leading Punishment Hall elder was surprised and happy. He shouted, "Lords of the sacred race, I am willing to submit to you. I have also captured an important person from the Western Black Mountain." The Irontail Dao Saint expert sneered disdainfully. "The human race is a lowly ant and you are a bunch of lowly dogs." The other foreign race cultivators also looked at the Punishment Hall cultivators with disdain. The leading elder smiled and said, "Lord, you are right. I am a dog. I am willing to serve the lords of the sacred race. I just want to live. What use do I have for you dogs? The iron-tailed Tao Saint sneered and suddenly swung his tail. A terrifying vibration swept over and killed the leading Punishment Hall elder and more than 10 other Punishment Hall cultivators. The other Punishment Hall cultivators were scared out of their wit. They had not expected that the foreign race experts would not care about their lives after they tried to curry favor with them. They all hurriedly ran for their lives. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The foreign race cultivators chased after them and killed all the Punishment Hall elders and cultivators. Even their corpses were eaten. As the Punishment Hall cultivators either fled or died, the shackles around Su Fong vanished without a trace. You are just a Void Dao Realm cultivator. How can you be considered an important person in the Western Black Mountain? The Iron-Tail race cultivator looked at Su Fong and sneered disdainfully. A lower-level Dao Saint from the Mayfly race waved his hand and a black cloud appeared. It swept towards Su Fong. No, it wasn't a black cloud. It was formed by countless black beetles. The black beetles were like ants that had been enlarged 100 times. They had extremely sharp teeth and there were so many of them. Once surrounded, even a mid-level Dao Saint would be swallowed whole. Hiss! A hissing sound suddenly came from Su Fong's body. A ferocious aura surged out from Su Fong's body. Whoosh! 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 The aura released by Su Fong swept out and the black beetles fell like raindrops. The remaining ones fled in all directions. No matter how the foreign race Dao Saint tried to control them, he could not control them. It turned out that Su Fong had made the heavenly swallowing insects release their aura. The heavenly swallowing insect was a high-level life form. How could the black beetles not be afraid of its aura? When the Dao Saint from the Mayfly race saw that the black beetles were so scared that they did not dare to approach Su Fong, he was shocked. A black Xian Guang appeared behind him and turned into a pair of light wings. With a buzz, he appeared in front of Su Fong. At this moment, the sovereign activated the ancient bridge and broke through the foreign race's defense line. The Dao Saint from the Savage Dragon race and the other foreign race cultivators were all attracted. The Mayfly race cultivator was also stunned. In the blink of an eye, boom! Tens of thousands of thoughts surged out of Su Fong's Dao Palace and suddenly exploded. They turned into dazzling Xian Guang and caused all the foreign race cultivators to lose their senses. Bright yang dazzling light flash. Taking advantage of this moment, Su Fong's Dao Palace surged with the aura of the heavenly secret life contraction art. It quickly condensed into an incorporeal thread that shot toward the Dao Saint of the Mayfly race and landed in his incorporeal fate. Life-pulling karma thread. The Dao Saint from the Mayfly race felt as if his fate was being controlled by an invisible force. He was shocked and instinctively waved his hand to chop off Su Fong's head. This foreign race cultivator's arm was different from that of a human. It was like a pair of sharp pincers that could destroy an ordinary king-grade Xian Guang. After Su Fong used the life-pulling karma thread, his life force quickly became weak and his hair turned white. He looked like he was in his 50s. Su Fong had paid a heavy price to use the Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique to control the fate of a Dao Saint expert. Moreover, it was a Dao Saint from another race. Seeing that Su Fong's head was about to be torn apart, he stood there and did not move. The Dao Saint from the Mayfly race suddenly waved his hand and turned the attack on Su Fong into a shackling force. It shackled Su Fong's body and sucked him into the Dao Palace. It turned out that Su Fong had used the life-pulling karma thread and caused the life-pulling karma thread to tremble and control the fate of the Dao Saint from the Mayfly race. How could he really kill Su Fong? The leading Dao Saint from the Savage Dragon race looked at the Dao Saint from the Mayfly race. He recovered his vision and saw the Dao Saint from the Mayfly race grab Su Fong. His eyes flashed and he asked, "Why didn't you kill that human cultivator?" The Dao Saint from the Mayfly race answered, "This human cultivator has a strong life force. I will use him to cultivate when I reach a higher level." The savage dragon race cultivator and the other foreign race cultivators no longer suspected anything. If there was a human Tao saint from the upper level here, they might be able to see through Su Fang's life shrinking technique. However, the savage dragon race cultivator did not know much about the fate of nothingness. Thus, when Su Fang used the life shrinking technique right in front of him, the Tao saint from the savage dragon race did not notice at all. Just like that, Su Fang hid in the body of a Tao saint from the mayfly race without leaving a trace. At the same time, it meant that they had escaped this time and obtained a chance to live. The human cultivators are about to break out of the encirclement. I will go and support them. The Tao saint from the savage dragon race turned his attention to the direction of the human cultivators. Seeing that the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were about to break out, he immediately teleported over. The Tao saint from the mayfly race and the other foreign race cultivators slowly flew back to the formation they were defending. Su Fang used his divine might in the body of the Tao saint from the mayfly race. Using the Tao saint from the mayfly race's eyes, he kept an eye on the direction of the Western Mystery Mountain's main attack. His heart was in his throat. Chapter 31:15. If the head elder of punishments had not betrayed them and ambushed the sovereign, causing him to be injured and unable to continue operating the formation, some of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators would have been able to escape. Now, the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators had lost all hope of escaping. Not only did the alien army outnumber the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators, but they also had many Tao saints and dozens of Daozu. There were even peak Daozu existences. How could the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators possibly escape? Although Su Fang had managed to escape, he had sacrificed the lives of everyone in the Western Mystery Mountain. How could he be at ease? You shoulder the future inheritance of the Western Mystery Mountain. No matter what happens, you have to escape. The sovereign's parting words echoed in Su Fang's mind. Go. Su Fang struggled internally. In the end, he clenched his teeth and made a decision. He sent a thought to the Tao saint of the mayfly race who was being controlled. The Tao saint of the mayfly race left the defensive line. While the other alien cultivators were focused on the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators, he quickly flew out of the defensive line. The mayfly race expert was a Tao saint. Mayfly race was also a powerful race in the alien army. Although some alien cultivators noticed him, no one stopped him. As the ancient bridge shattered, the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were once again surrounded by the alien army. The gap created by the ancient bridge was also sealed by countless alien cultivators. There is no way out. We will die either way. Kill our way out. Sword Sovereign was like a furious lion. His white hair stood on end as he let out a thunderous roar. Killing one is enough. Killing two is worth it. Kill. Wine Saint took out a wine gourd and drank all the wine in it in one gulp. He laughed maniacally. Kill. Kill. All the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators roared together with determination. At this moment they had no choice but to fight with their lives on the line. What's the point of struggling before death? Daozu of the savage dragon race walked out of the void and blocked the way. He swept his cold brows and looked at the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators with disdain. Daozu expert. The aura of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators suddenly weakened. Everyone was timid, terrified, and at the same time respectful. In the human world, Daozu experts were supreme existences. In front of Daozu experts, other than respect, there was no will to resist. Daozu of the savage dragon race smiled sinisterly. I allow you to kill yourselves so that you won't fall to the hands of my descendants and be tortured. His cold voice was filled with dominance. In front of him, the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain even needed his permission to die. How domineering was this? So what if you are Daozu to be? This old man has cultivated for 24 eras and should have died long ago. Since I was able to fight a Tao ancestor before I die, what regrets do I have in dying? The Sword Sovereign let out a long laugh as he began to burn his thoughts, life force, and cultivation base. His aura began to rise steadily. He was originally only a half-step Daozu cultivator. Now that he was burning everything, his aura surpassed the limit of Daozu and reached the level of Daozu. So this is Daozu's realm. Sword Sovereign's eyes were filled with excitement and infatuation. Then he shouted, "Brats of the Western Mystery Mountain, follow me and kill! I didn't expect there to be someone like you who is not afraid of death among the human race. I underestimated you." Daozu of the Savage Dragon race was surprised. Then he sneered disdainfully. "Even if you burn everything and barely reach the level of Daozu, you will only be like a shooting star that will disappear in an instant. In front of me, you are still ants. Even if you are an ant, you will not live an ignoble life. Even if you die, you will die with a bang." Sword Sovereign unleashed a monstrous sword aura that turned into an endless halo of sword intent. It looked like a spiraling sword, and then he charged towards Daozu of the Savage Dragon race. "I would rather die than live an ignoble life." Wine Saint, Een Patian, and the other Dao Saints all had tears in their eyes. Their faces were solemn and resolute as they followed Sword Sovereign to kill their way out. There were still more than 7 million cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain left. Influenced by Sword Sovereign, their fear of the Daozu experts and their fear of death disappeared at this moment. They roared and charged out. Boom! Boom! A great battle unfolded outside the Western Mystery Mountain. Cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain fell one after another, and their blood dyed the sky red. However, no one retreated. Many cultivators followed Sword Sovereign's example and burned everything. Some even charged into the midst of the foreign race cultivators and self-detonated their bodies and Dao palaces. Although the foreign race army had encountered stubborn resistance from the human cultivators ever since they had invaded the human world, they had never experienced such a fierce battle. Even when they had invaded the demon world, those violent and unruly demons had not been so frenzied against the foreign race cultivators. Under the fearless charge of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators, the defense line that the foreign race army had just formed actually began to weaken. Just a bunch of ants. How big of a wave do you think you can cause? Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race clashed with Sword Sovereign, who had burned everything. Although he had the upper hand, he was firmly entangled by Sword Sovereign. Sensing the battle situation, Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race's eyes flashed with fierce killing intent. He opened his mouth and spat out a ghastly white xian guang that transformed into a 3-foot-long fang. Although this fang was not large, it was extremely sharp. It pierced Sword Sovereign's halo of sword intent and instantly pierced through it. Then, it pierced Sword Sovereign's heart like a bolt of lightning. Then, that fang began to frantically devour Sword Sovereign's life. The white fang quickly turned blood-red. Sword Sovereign's aura rapidly drained away, and his body withered. "All of you, stop!" Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race let out a thunderous roar, and his will enveloped the surroundings. The foreign race army rapidly retreated. Under the suppression of Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race's will, the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain all trembled. When they saw Sword Sovereign's appearance, they instantly felt as if ice water had been poured over their heads. A chill seeped out of their backs, and their hearts began to sink into despair. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race said majestically, "You have no hope of escaping. I will give you a chance. Come over now and kneel before me. If you do, I will spare your lives." There was a moment of silence. A cultivator of the Western Mystery Mountain flew out from the crowd and shouted, "The Western Mystery Mountain is destined to be destroyed. I am willing to submit to the sacred tribe." Poof! Xian Guang flashed from behind and struck that cultivator's body. With a boom, it burst into flames and burned him to ashes. Surrender to the foreign race and become their slave. Living a life worse than death. How can we listen to the nonsense of that foreign race? Wine Saint roared angrily. You talk too much. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race looked indifferently at Wine Saint. The shadow of a claw swept out and instantly appeared in front of Wine Saint. It turned into a sharp claw and crushed Wine Saint's right arm. In the face of Daozu's attack, Wine Saint, a Dao Saint, was completely powerless. I see that you still have some value, so I will give you a way out. As long as you submit to the Savage Flood Dragon Race, I will not only give you a chance to live, but I will also make you a vassal race of the Savage Flood Dragon Race. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race said in a voice filled with temptation. Whoosh! A middle-aged cultivator teleported out. His speed had reached the level of a Dao Saint. He was a Dao Saint of the Western Mystery Mountain. There were a total of 9 Dao Saints in the Western Mystery Mountain, and this middle-aged man was one of them. Unexpectedly, he had chosen to submit. This middle-aged man was at the same height as Wine Saint. Even if he was not severely injured, he would not be able to stop him. I am willing to submit. The middle-aged man knelt before Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race. Very good. I will make you the master of all the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain who submit, the Dao Saint of the Savage Flood Dragon Race said with a nod. Other races were naturally savage, 10 times more savage than the Big Goblin. They were extremely similar to the Devil race of the low-level universe. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race had changed his mind and wanted to subdue the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain, not because he was soft-hearted. Conquering the Western Mystery Mountain was only the beginning of conquering the human world. It was not difficult for a Dao Saint to kill all the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain. However, if the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain fought to the death, they would set an example for other human cultivators. In the future, it would not be so easy to conquer the entire human race. At the very least, they would cause considerable losses to the other races. Furthermore, subduing the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain as slaves and making them work for the Savage Flood Dragon Race would also increase the overall strength of the Savage Flood Dragon Race. As a result, Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race changed his mind. After the middle-aged Dao Saint took the lead, the cultivators of Solid Jade Peak flew toward Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race. I am Chen Tianqing, a disciple of the Western Mystery Daozu. I am also willing to submit to the sacred race. Another figure flew out, causing an uproar among the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain. Some of the more determined cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain began to waver. This person was Chen Tianqing, a disciple of the Western Mystery Daozu of the Western Mystery Mountain. Who would have thought that even a disciple of the Daozu would choose to submit? Under Chen Tianqing's lead, many cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain began to stir. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race and the other cultivators of other races had smug and mocking expressions in their eyes. The Wine Saint shouted angrily, Chen Tianqing, you shameless villain! I swear I will kill you! Chen Tianqing snorted disdainfully. A wise man submits to circumstances. I have a limitless future. Why should I be destroyed with the Western Mystery Mountain? Suddenly Patian shouted, Chen Tianqing is right. I am also a disciple of the Daozu. I am also willing to submit to the Savage Flood Dragon Race. Then, his figure flashed, and he teleported into the midst of the kneeling cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain. Puff, Patian, you! The Wine Saint spat out a mouthful of blood and gritted his teeth as he looked at Patian. At this moment, Patian cupped his fists and bowed to the Wine Saint. He laughed loudly as his cultivation, soul, and physical body began to burn rapidly. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon Race raised his eyebrows. Ant, how dare you! Boom! Patian exploded. The surrounding cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain, including Chen Tianqing and the middle-aged Dao Saint, were all engulfed by the terrifying power of the explosion. The power of a Dao Saint's self-destruction was extremely shocking. None of the surrounding cultivators were spared. They were all turned into ashes by the power of Een Potion's self-destruction. Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race waved his sleeves and neutralized the aftershock. Een Potion, my good brother! The Wine Saint roared angrily and charged toward Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race, without caring about anything else. The Dao hearts of the other Western Mystery Mountain cultivators, which had already been shaken, were now as firm as steel. They charged forward together with the Wine Saint. Since all of you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race said in a voice filled with killing intent. Suddenly an ancient, sacred, and eternal aura shot into the sky from the periphery. A primordial heavenly treasure? That is the aura of a primordial heavenly treasure. Chapter 31:16. Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race immediately gave up on the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators and teleported away. He appeared in the air above a place where the foreign race army was stationed. He looked over. This place wasn't very big. It was only 1,000 miles in size, and a branch of the Mayfly race was stationed there. Thousands of foreign race cultivators were currently engaged in a life-and-death battle. Among them were 5 Dao Saints of different races, and the rest were all foreign race cultivators at the Dao Void Realm. The target of these foreign race experts was an ancient bronze lamp. The aura Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race had sensed came from this ancient lamp. The battle was extremely horrifying. The eyes of every single Xenorace expert burned with the flames of greed, and all of them executed their strongest divine abilities. It was a completely life-and-death battle. This was because this ancient lamp was no ordinary treasure. It was a primordial heavenly treasure. A primordial heavenly treasure could not only increase a person's strength, but it could also affect the rise and fall of an entire race. The precious tree Divine Mother was above Dao Zu because she possessed a primordial heavenly treasure. No one in the heavenly tree race dared to provoke her. Now that a primordial heavenly treasure had appeared out of nowhere, how could these foreign race experts not scramble for it? A primordial heavenly treasure. It is indeed a primordial heavenly treasure. Longevity lamp. The Savage Flood Dragon race expert's eyes instantly lit up and his heart burned with desire. It wasn't just a primordial heavenly treasure. It was the legendary longevity lamp that could grant one eternal life. Even Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race was tempted. Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race projected his sensory energy and sensed the surroundings. The appearance of the longevity lamp was too strange. Even Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race had to be careful. Given Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race's strength, he naturally knew that a primordial heavenly treasure had appeared in the chaos heavenly tide of the Western Profound Divine Realm. It was the longevity lamp. Although the longevity lamp that appeared in the chaos heavenly tide was incomplete, it still made countless foreign race experts excited. This was also one of the reasons why the foreign race immediately attacked the Western Profound Divine Realm after conquering the Southern Profound Divine Realm. Dao Zu of the Savage Flood Dragon race had never imagined that the longevity lamp would appear in the foreign race army. What was even more unexpected was that the longevity lamp that appeared now was a complete longevity lamp. The timing of its appearance was also incomparably strange. It was when the Western Mystery Mountains cultivators were about to be completely wiped out. Strange. This was extremely strange. Is this a trap set by the humans? The Savage Flood Dragon clan's Dao ancestor tried to sense the surroundings, but he did not find anything out of the ordinary. He also did not sense the aura of any human cultivators around him. Boom, boom, boom. More and more Dao Saints from the other races joined the battle for the treasure. The battle became even more intense. 3 Dao Saints from the other races were already heavily injured, and 1 Dao Saint from the Iron Tail race died on the spot. Anna of the Heavens of the Dragon race, Heavenly Dragon, Heavenly Dao. He was one of the strongest among the Dao Saints of the Savage Flood Dragon race. No one could stop him. The Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race sensed that the longevity lamp had attracted the attention of all the Daozu experts. They were all focusing their senses on the longevity lamp. However, these Daozu experts were thinking the same thing as Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race. They were confused about the timing of the longevity lamp's appearance. Moreover, these Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race had other important missions. If we don't take it now, the longevity lamp will definitely fall into the hands of others. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race did not hesitate. The Savage Flood Dragon race's aura shattered 2 of the heads of the 3 Dao Saints of the Savage Flood Dragon race. Their bodies were sent flying. Supreme Xian Bao, how dare you lowly existences try to get your hands on it? Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race laughed coldly. He waved his hand and swept out a divine aura to take the longevity lamp. Who knew it was as if the longevity lamp had taken root. Even the divine aura of the Daozu experts could not shake it. As expected of the Supreme Xian Bao, Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race was surprised at first. Then, he was overjoyed. Just as he was about to use all his strength to take the longevity lamp, a figure walked out of the void. It was an expert from the Mayfly race. His aura was as powerful as Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race. He was also a peerless existence at the same level as the Daozu. This treasure was discovered by a cultivator of my race. Naturally, it belongs to the Mayfly race. How dare you openly snatch it from me? The expert from the Mayfly race said coldly. He spat out a jet of black venom. In an instant, it was like a black rain falling down on the Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race. I saw it first. The longevity lamp naturally belongs to me. If you want to snatch the treasure from me, let's see if you are strong enough. Daozu of the Savage Flood Dragon race was forced to move away from the longevity lamp. He avoided the venom rain and started a huge battle with Daozu of the Mayfly race. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More than 10 experts of the Daozu appeared one after another. They pounced on the longevity lamp as soon as they appeared. An intense battle that was 100 times more shocking than the battle between the Dao Saints was about to start. The other ordinary foreign race cultivators all retreated. The battle between the Daozu would be earth-shattering. Even experts at the Dao Saint level were not qualified to participate. Those below the Dao Saint level were not even qualified to watch. The battle here surprised the Western mystery cultivators, who were heavily surrounded. They did not expect internal strife to break out among the foreign races at such a critical moment. While the Wine Saint was watching, a divine thought suddenly rang in his mind. Senior brother Wine Saint, why are you still standing there and not stopping the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators from killing their way out? Su Fang? Why did you come back? The Wine Saint's heart was in turmoil. The sovereign sacrificed the entire Western Black Mountain in order to fight for a chance to live. How can I, in order to survive, watch you all sacrifice yourselves for me? Su Fang's divine sense continued to transmit. You brat, you really don't care about the big picture. If you die, what will happen to the inheritance of the Western Mystery Mountain? What will you do about the matter that Een Patian and I asked you to do? Sword Sovereign, Een Patian, and so many of us will have died for nothing. Senior brother, I have already arranged the matters that you and senior brother Een Patian have arranged for those geniuses of the Western Mystery Mountain. Even if I die here today, they will be safe and sound. Su Fang's divine thought was full of confidence. It turned out, after Su Fang escaped from the encirclement of the alien army, he saw the fall of sword supremacy with his perfect vision. He also saw the death of Een Patian. After seeing this scene, how could Su Fang leave? If he left now, even if he could protect himself, Su Fang would blame himself in the future and his Dao heart would be damaged. Not to mention cultivating an immortal Dao heart and becoming a supreme Daozu, or even becoming an immortal, it would definitely cause shackles on his cultivation in the future. Cultivators and cultivators cultivated the truth and the true self. Their hearts were free and unrestrained. If he sacrificed everyone and escaped alone, it would go against Su Fang's original intentions. Naturally, it would leave a knot in his Tao heart and become a heart demon that would never be resolved. Therefore, Su Fang returned without hesitation. Su Fang was not a rash person. He would not save people just because of his hot-bloodedness. He first moved everyone into the inner world of the heavenly Tao Dharma body. Then, he let the heavenly Tao Dharma body enter the inner world of his subordinate, Tu Xiu, and let Tu Xiu take the heavenly Tao Dharma body and leave the Western Mystery Mountain. Then, Su Fang continued to hide in the body of the Mayfly race Tao Saint that was being controlled. He found a place where the foreign race army was stationed and took out the longevity lamp and released the aura of the longevity lamp. Then, he let the Mayfly race Tao Saint hide in a corner. Just as Su Fang had expected, the longevity lamp had attracted the experts of the alien clans to fight for it. Even the Tao patriarchs of the savage Flood Dragon clan had abandoned those cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain and were attracted by the aura of the longevity lamp. However, one or two foreign race Daozu was far from enough. Su Fang's goal was to attract all the Daozu experts. It would be best if these alien Tao ancestors fought for the longevity lamp. Even if they didn't fight, it didn't matter. When the time came, Su Fang would activate the longevity lamp. Even if he couldn't kill these alien Tao ancestors, he would at least severely injure them. This way, the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators would have a chance to escape. This plan could be said to be crazy and bold. However, it was not without hope of success. Previously, in the 6 Paths of Heaven, he had used the same method to kill the foreign race army of 1,000,000. This time, he was just repeating the same trick. Now, Su Fang was even stronger than when he was in the 6 Paths of Heaven. Even the Daozu experts would be severely injured or even killed by the longevity lamp. As for Su Fang, he also knew that once he activated the longevity lamp, it would be equivalent to putting himself in a desperate situation. His chances of escaping were not high. But, so what? Su Fang was already prepared to die. In one's life, one had to do things that one should not do but had to do. Moreover, Su Fang was not without a trump card. With the longevity lamp, his soul would not be destroyed. Even if his physical body and Dharma body were to perish, his soul would not die with the help of the longevity lamp. At that time, even if the longevity lamp fell into the hands of the foreign race experts of the Daozu, they would not be able to fuse with the longevity lamp, let alone destroy Su Fang's soul. Everything was going as Su Fang had predicted. The foreign race experts of the Daozu were about to fight for the longevity lamp and a huge battle was about to break out. Senior Brother Wine Saint, secretly gather everyone. When I make my move, break out of the encirclement with all your might. This will be your only chance. You are crazy. Forget it. Now that things have come to this, I have no choice but to let you be as crazy as you want. He ended his conversation with Wine Saint. In the void 30,000 miles away from the longevity lamp, the Tao Saint of the Mayfly race under Su Fang's control was mixed in with the other foreign race experts, watching every movement around the longevity lamp. In order to fight for the longevity lamp, the foreign race experts of the Daozu saw that a huge battle was about to break out. A powerful will suddenly descended, enveloping the longevity lamp and the foreign race experts of the Daozu. Then, the top Daozu expert of the 3-eyed black demon appeared in the sky and said in a majestic voice, "The Western Black Mountain is about to be breached, but all of you are fighting for a treasure, even ignoring the human cultivators. I will take care of the longevity lamp first. Once the Western Black Mountain is destroyed, we will decide who the treasure belongs to." Chapter 31:17. The 3-eyed black demon race was the strongest of the alien races that had invaded the human world. This 3-eyed black demon was a peerless existence at the peak of the Tao ancestor realm. At this time, he appeared and said that he wanted to keep the longevity lamp. In fact, he wanted to take it for himself. Who dared to refute? The Daozu experts, especially the Daozu of the savage flood dragon race, could only watch as the longevity lamp fell into the hands of the three-eyed black demon race's Daozu. There was nothing they could do about it. Among the alien races, the strong preyed on the weak. Whoever had the bigger fist and the stronger power would control the fate of the other experts and even the other races. Suddenly, the shadow of a giant insect suddenly appeared around the longevity lamp. It quickly turned from illusory to corporeal, transforming into a 100-meter-long black ant-like monster that exuded a violent and evil aura. The three-eyed black demon Daozu's divine light changed slightly, and the divine aura that was sweeping toward the longevity lamp also paused. Mayfly race, do you want to fight with my three-eyed black demon race for the longevity lamp? The three-eyed black demon Daozu said coldly. Divine light flashed, and a black-robed old man walked out of the void. This person's aura was illusory. If he hadn't revealed himself, no one would have been able to sense his aura. He was also a peak Daozu expert. This person was one of the two peak Daozu experts that had attacked the human world, and he was from the Mayfly race. I can give up on the longevity lamp. However, after we break through the western Black Mountain, I want that time mirage. The Mayfly race's Daozu said indifferently. The three-eyed black demon Daozu clearly knew what the Mayfly race's Daozu was talking about. After a moment of silence, he nodded and said, "Deal." As soon as he finished speaking, his divine aura wrapped around the longevity lamp. Unexpectedly, the longevity lamp buzzed and trembled, but it didn't budge. The three-eyed black demon Daozu's divine light changed slightly, and he exclaimed, "The longevity lamp has an owner? Who can fuse with the longevity lamp?" All of the alien experts, including the peak Dao ancestor from the Mayfly clan, had looks of disbelief on their faces. At this moment, ting! Suddenly, the longevity lamp ignited with a small flame. Then, it began to burn. As the oil of the lamp burned, an illusionary aura burst out of it, covering the rift within 50,000 li. It was Su Fong who had secretly activated the longevity lamp, erupting with a supreme power that could devour souls. At this moment, Su Fong had advanced into the upper Daolord realm, and he was on the verge of attaining the peak of the upper Daolord realm. Coupled with the fact that he'd fused with the longevity lamp further, the might that the longevity lamp emanated had multiplied. Not only had the might of the longevity lamp expanded from the initial 10,000 li to 50,000 li, but its ability to devour souls had also increased. Under the power of the longevity lamp, the foreign race cultivators within its range, including the Dao saints, felt their souls tremble. Their souls left their bodies uncontrollably and flew toward the longevity lamp. Due to the previous clash between the alien Dao ancestors, most of the alien cultivators had stayed far away from the area. Therefore, there weren't many alien cultivators within 50,000 kilometers of the longevity lamp. However, these foreign race cultivators were the top experts of their respective races. Besides the Daozu, there were over 50 Dao saints and over 1,000 Dao void cultivators. First, it was the Dao void cultivators, and then the Dao saint cultivators who had lost control of their souls. It was as if the longevity lamp possessed some sort of magical power, and they couldn't help but fly toward it. The strangest and most terrifying thing was that the souls and bodies that had left their bodies had smiles on their faces. It was as if they were willing to be devoured by the longevity lamp. Countless foreign race cultivators in the distance were flabbergasted when they saw this strange scene, and their souls and Dao hearts trembled. This was especially so for Yu Shui, the peak Dao saint from the Mayfly race. Half of his soul had been devoured by the longevity lamp before, and he was terrified when he saw this scene. At the same time, he felt a sense of relief. Yu Shui was the only foreign race cultivator who had seen the power of the longevity lamp. When the longevity lamp appeared, he already suspected that it was a trap set by Su Fong, so he didn't try to seize the longevity lamp like the other foreign race cultivators. He didn't even dare to get close to watch the show. However, he didn't expect that Su Fang would be so crazy, and that the longevity lamp's power would become so shocking that it could easily devour the souls of Dao saints. Even the souls of peerless experts like the Daozu were shaken. Piak piak piak. The souls of the foreign race cultivators flew toward the lamp like moth. They burned in the lamp and turned into pure soul lamp oil, causing the flame of the longevity lamp to flicker continuously. At first, it was the foreign race cultivators who were at the Dao Void Realm. Then, it was the ordinary Dao saints. In the end, even the souls of peak Dao saints began to tremble, and they wanted to leave their bodies uncontrollably. Because the Daozu was too close to the longevity lamp, the power of the longevity lamp was even stronger, and their souls were shaken by the longevity lamp. However, devouring the souls of Daozu experts was clearly not an easy task. He's over there. The Daozu expert from the Mayfly race quickly discovered Su Fang hiding in the body of a Dao saint from the Mayfly race. He had no choice. Activating the longevity lamp caused Su Fang's soul to burn, and he couldn't use any of his abilities to conceal his aura. Furthermore, when he activated the longevity lamp, he had an unconcealable connection with Xian Bao. With the strength of a peak expert like the Daozu, he could easily discover Su Fang. No matter how deeply he hid, it was useless. The Daozu's soul was extremely powerful, and he actually managed to withstand the longevity lamp's power of stripping souls and charged toward Su Fang. Boom! Su Fang endured the intense pain of his soul being burned and activated the longevity lamp, causing it to erupt with even more power. The Daozu's body swayed, and his soul almost escaped from his body. He was so frightened that he hurriedly stopped. The other Daozu experts could only tightly guard their souls and minds as they resisted the power of the longevity lamp. In the face of the power of the primordial heavenly treasure, these Daozu experts had no choice but to use all their strength. If they weren't careful, their souls would be injured even if the longevity lamp didn't devour them. Once their souls were injured, even the Daozu experts would find it difficult to bear. Therefore, these Daozu experts were all wary of the longevity lamp. Senior Brother Wine Sage, hurry up and kill them. Su Fang transmitted his thoughts to the Wine Sage. The Wine Sage and the other Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were just as shocked and surprised as the other foreign race cultivators when they saw this scene. After being reminded by Su Fang, the Wine Sage seemed to wake up from a dream. He hurriedly stopped the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators and charged out of the encirclement. At this moment, the Western Mystery Mountain's array suddenly erupted with heaven-shaking power, and an ancient bridge quickly reformed and extended over. The Sovereign is mighty. The Wine Sage and the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were both shocked and overjoyed. Their morale was greatly boosted, and they all flew toward the ancient bridge, infusing their cultivation and power into it, causing the ancient bridge to become even more solid. The speed at which it extended forward also increased. It turned out that the heavily injured sovereign had started to burn his cultivation, body, and soul to activate the Western Mystery Mountain's array once more. At this moment, the sovereign was like a lamp that released a brilliant light before being extinguished. He sent the head elder of punishments flying and activated the Western Mystery Mountain's array to release even more power than before. Boom boom boom. The foreign race army was numerous, and they all charged toward the ancient bridge, causing it to continuously shatter. Many Western Mystery Mountain cultivators were also shaken to death. However, none of the foreign race cultivators could stop the ancient bridge from advancing. The foreign race Daozu experts were all restrained by the power of the longevity lamp. Although their souls weren't devoured, they didn't dare to use their abilities. They could only watch as the ancient bridge swept through everything in its path, crushing the foreign race army and charging out of the encirclement. Everyone, if you still want to preserve your strength now and wait for the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators to escape, no one will be able to withstand the fury of the higher-ups," the three-eyed black demon race elder said majestically. The other foreign race Daozu experts all showed wary expressions. The Mayfly race Daozu gritted its teeth and shouted, "If a human void Dao cultivator destroys our plan, won't we become the biggest joke in the world? Let's release our soul power and destroy the longevity lamp." Boom boom boom. All the foreign race Daozu experts released their soul power and released an illusory soul power. The longevity lamp was like a flame that was blown by a wild wind. It danced wildly and started to lose its last breath. "I've already done my best." Su Fang's soul was also shaken and started to break into pieces. Facing the soul power of more than 10 Daozu experts, no matter how strong Su Fang's Dao heart was or how firm his will was, his soul couldn't withstand it. Under the intense pain of his soul being burned and broken, Su Fang helplessly smiled bitterly in his heart. Then, he fainted and completely lost consciousness. Buzz buzz buzz, the longevity lamp trembled continuously. The blazing flame turned into a dim light the size of a soybean. The power it released also disappeared. "Lowly ant, I'll kill you!" The Daozu expert of the three-eyed black demon race let out a thunderous roar that was filled with anger and killing intent. A black Xian Guang shot out from his eyes and appeared in front of Su Fang in an instant. A terrifying aura of destruction instantly enveloped Su Fang. More than 10 Daozu experts, including 2 peak-stage Daozu experts, were schemed against by a human void Dao cultivator. Not only did they almost let the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators escape, but more than 30 Daozu experts were also killed. Even their souls were damaged. How could the Daozu experts of the three-eyed black demon race not be furious? Suddenly Su Fang and the surrounding void suddenly twisted. A divine power that could reverse yin and yang and distort time and space surged out of nowhere. It wrapped around Su Fang and disappeared without a trace. In the void about 1,000,000 miles away, a young man stood in the air. A black and white yin-yang divine mirror floated in front of him. It released a black and white Xian Guang and wrapped around a figure. It was the unconscious Su Fang. The young man said majestically, "More than 10 Daozu experts bullied a mere void Dao cultivator. When did the foreign race cultivators become so shameless?" Dongxian Daozu? The light in the eyes of the Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race changed slightly. He didn't expect the Dongxian Daozu to appear at this time. However, it wasn't surprising. The foreign race army besieged the Western Mystery Mountain not only to destroy the Western Mystery Divine Realm, but also to lure the human race's reinforcements. When the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain broke through the encirclement, only the Daozu of the savage flood dragon race acted to stop them. The other Daozu experts didn't move. Other than disdaining to act, it was also to guard against the human race expert. However, these Daozu experts didn't expect that their plan would be ruined by Su Fang. Since the other Daozu of the human race are here, why don't they all appear together? Chapter 31:18. Just as the Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race finished speaking, a black cloud rolled out and instantly covered half the sky, swallowing the foreign race cultivators who were chasing after the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators. Screams of agony came from the black cloud. Countless foreign race cultivators were swallowed by the black cloud. The Dark Mother Daozu of the Dark Profound Divine Realm. The Daozu of the savage flood dragon race let out an angry roar, and the sound waves instantly dispersed the black cloud. The foreign race cultivators who were lucky enough to escape with their lives all retreated. Less than 5 million of the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators had managed to break out of the encirclement, and only the Wine Saint and another ordinary Dao Saint were left. It could be said that they had suffered heavy losses. However, it was already very fortunate for so many cultivators to be able to escape. Everyone felt as if they were dreaming. They didn't dare to believe that they could really break out of the encirclement of the foreign race army. A black-robed woman slowly walked out of the darkness. It was the Dark Mother. The Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race sneered. The Dark Mother Daozu and the Western Mystery Daozu were a pair of Dao companions. Although they later separated, their feelings for each other were still there. I was wondering why the Dark Mother Daozu never appeared after the Western Mystery Divine Realm was destroyed. Now, she has indeed appeared. The Daozu of the Mayfly race snorted and said, "Since the other Daozu of the human race are here, why don't you show yourself?" Whoosh whoosh whoosh, one figure after another flew out of the void. They were all peerless experts of the Daozu's level. There were a total of 19 of them. More than half of the human Daozu experts had come to the Western Mystery Mountain. The Wine Saint and the others were all shocked. Then they cheered. Some of them had just escaped, and now that they saw strong reinforcements, they relaxed and immediately fainted. The Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race had a serious look in his eyes. The other foreign race Daozu's eyes also changed. The foreign race cultivators were a level stronger than human cultivators of the same level. Although the human Daozu outnumbered the foreign race Daozu in terms of overall strength, the human Daozu was clearly at a disadvantage. Moreover, there were two extremely powerful Daozu peak experts on the foreign race side. However, the foreign race Daozu of the Daozu had injured his soul to break free from the longevity lamp. Although it wasn't too serious, it had greatly affected the foreign race expert. The Daozu of the human race. Daozu of the Western Mystery Mountain. Even if the Daozu of the Western Mystery race, he wouldn't have had such face that more than half human Daozu experts of the Daozu would risk death, human Daozu experts to come to the mountain. Why are so many of them here? Dongxian Daozu smiled embarrassedly. You're right. That old thing doesn't have such face. I also don't have such face. However, my disciple has something that all Daozu experts would scramble for. When I invited them, they all came. The three-eyed black demon Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race's eyes flashed with cold light. Time mirage? Only the time mirage that appears in the chaos tide can allow Daozu experts to comprehend it and obtain a glimmer of hope of becoming immortal. Only such a treasure can cause all Daozu experts to scramble for it. Dongxian Daozu nodded. That's right. How hateful. I didn't think that a mere void Dao cultivator would ruin everything. The savage flood dragon race Dao Saint said through gritted teeth. Daozu of the Dark Mother said coldly, "Didn't you besiege the Western Mystery Mountain to lure the human Daozu out? We're here. Why haven't you attacked yet? Do you think you can gain the upper hand just by doing this? The various races have joined forces to attack the human world. How can you only have this little strength? Since you're here, then don't leave. The three of you, please come out." Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race smiled coldly. Boom, boom, boom. 3 shocking auras burst out from the mystical world and the material world where the 3 alien armies were stationed. 3 figures slowly rose up. They were 3 Daozu experts of the alien races. Moreover, they were at the same height as Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race. They were all peerless experts at the peak of Daozu. The alien races are indeed sinister. They hid so many experts in the dark. They wanted to use the Western Mystery Mountain as bait to kill the human Daozu in one fell swoop and conquer the human world in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, Dongxian Daozu let out an inexplicable snort of laughter. I don't expect to kill all the human Daozu in one fell swoop. If I can kill less than half of you, it will be enough to destroy the human world. Dongxian Daozu, do you dare to fight with me? Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race laughed maniacally. Then, all 3 of his eyes shot out Black Xian Guang at the same time. In an instant, they formed an independent space that transcended the void in front of them. Why wouldn't I dare? Dongxian Daozu smiled proudly. His figure flashed and he charged into the world of the black demon race Daozu. The alien races are sinister and despicable. Dongxian Daozu, I will fight alongside you against the Daozu. Daozu of the Dark Mother turned into a black shadow and entered the independent space created by the black demon Daozu. The three peak Daozu experts who had just appeared looked at the human Daozu with disdain and were about to charge at the human Daozu. Suddenly, a white mist that couldn't be seen with the naked eye or primordial spirit surged out of the void. It carried a terrifying aura of calamity as it swept toward the three peak Daozu experts. Spider of Fortune. The domineering and disdainful look in the eyes of the three experts instantly turned into fear and shock. They used their thoughts to create worlds to keep the white mist at bay, not daring to touch it in the slightest. A 1,000-meter-long spider with a translucent body appeared out of thin air. Spider of Fortune. There were two Spider of Fortune in the human world. One was in the hands of Su Fang, and the other was in the mysterious Destiny platform. The Spider of the Destiny platform had once devoured the fortune of a powerful alien race, causing the destruction of that race. As such, it was infamous in the human world and among the alien races. Who would have thought that the Spider of the Destiny platform had also come to the Sichuan mountain? The spider spat out threads of nothingness, which seeped into the world of a peak-level Dao ancestor of the alien race and brought a terrible calamity to this world. Endless tribulations descended in this world. That peak Daozu expert had no choice but to use the heavenly Dao of the world to deal with the Spider of Fortune. The Spider of Fortune was simply too disgusting. It was a great calamity. Anyone who came into contact with it would be met with great misfortune. There was no expert who didn't fear it. Whoosh! Whoosh! Another two human cultivators broke through the void and charged toward the other two Daozu experts. One of the young men sat cross-legged on a lotus platform. The lotus platform was inscribed with countless mysterious Dao markings. If Su Fang was here, he would surely be able to discern that these mysterious Dao markings were actually extremely similar to the Dao markings of the life-shrinking art and the true runes of the Heavenflow mystery. 100,000 thoughts flashed out of the young man's forehead and turned into the power of destiny. They struck one of the peak Daozu experts like a silent thunderclap. This was the lightning of destiny, a peerless divine power that came from the life-shrinking technique. The other person was an old man in a yellow linen robe. He had a head of yellow hair, and even his beard and eyes were yellow. His aura was also extremely powerful. He was also a peak Daozu expert. You are Li Tian Daozu? One of the peak Daozu experts stared at the yellow-robed old man and asked in a deep voice. I didn't think that there would be a foreign expert who would recognize me after being in seclusion for so long. I am honored. The yellow-robed old man smiled embarrassedly. Li Tian Daozu? Apart from the human Daozu experts, most of the cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain looked at each other. They didn't know that the human race had such a powerful expert. Li Tian Daozu is Xian Zheng's master. The wine saint's eyes became incomparably spirited, and his dispirited spirit was greatly roused. The foreign expert opposite Li Tian Daozu snorted. Li Tian, according to what I know, you have already joined the Tensei people. Are you not afraid of being punished by the Tensei people for participating in the war between the human race? Li Tian Daozu smiled casually. My lifespan is nearing its end. Originally, I didn't want to interfere in the war between the human race and the foreign race. However, there is a chance for the human race to take that step forward. I must obtain it no matter what. I believe the Tensei people won't blame me. Fine, as long as you don't interfere, I won't interfere either. How about it? That peak Daozu expert hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. Just like that, the three hidden peak Daozu experts of the foreign race were all stopped by the human race. The alien race and the human race's Dao ancestors could be said to be evenly matched. Experts of the Daozu level rarely made a move, but once they did, it would be earth-shattering. How shocking would the battle between the foreign race and the human race be when there were nearly 40 Daozu experts? Unfortunately, no one was able to see the battle. In order to avoid affecting the foreign race army, and the human Daozu didn't want the Western Mystery Mountain to be destroyed, the foreign Daozu experts both tore apart the void or created worlds to engage in a life-and-death battle. The foreign race army and the surviving cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain all chose to confront each other. No one made the first move. The experts of the foreign race and the human race were fighting at the peak. The battle between the Dao Saints and cultivators below the Dao Saint level was meaningless. Poof! Dongxian Daozu, Dark Mother Daozu, and Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race were the first to shatter. The three figures flashed out of the collapsing spacetime at the same time. The moment Dongxian Daozu appeared, he staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. Dark Mother Daozu was still shrouded in darkness, but her aura was clearly much weaker. Looking at Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race, he saw that one of his eyes had shattered and black blood was pouring out. The three-eyed black demon race's great strength mostly depended on this third eye. Now that this eye had shattered, it meant that the three-eyed Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race was heavily injured. His injuries were far more serious than those of Dongxian Daozu and Dark Mother Daozu. The three-eyed Daozu of the three-eyed black demon race looked at Dongxian Daozu in disbelief. You've already comprehended a trace of the power of immortality. Chapter 31:19. Daozu's realm was different from the other realms. The other realms needed a long time to settle down from the lower realm to the peak realm, and then break through to a higher realm. Daozu's realm was different. No matter how long it took, the highest realm it could reach was the peak. If it couldn't grasp the truth of the great Tao, it would be hard for it to become immortal. However, ordinary Tao saints, even if they didn't have a long time to settle down, if they could comprehend the great Tao in one day, they could become immortal. Shixian Daozu wasn't at the peak, but he could reach the immortal realm because of this. Dao ancestor Dongxian was not a particularly powerful Dao ancestor, but he had gained insights from the time mirage and glimpsed a hint of the immortal realm. As a result, his strength had undergone a tremendous change. When he joined forces with Dao ancestor Dark Mother, he could even severely injure a peak Dao ancestor of the three-eyed black fiend. Precious Tree Godmother is right. The human race can't be underestimated. You can comprehend the truth of the great Tao just by comprehending the nightmare statue and have a trace of immortal power. If the human race has the immortal inheritance, more immortal experts will be born. They will have the ability to dominate the chaos. The three-eyed Daozu stared at Dongxian Daozu. His eyes were filled with fear and shock. At the same time, he was more determined to destroy the human race. The human race will have immortal experts sooner or later. You don't have to say more. Unfortunately, you humans won't have the chance. The 12 races are working together to destroy the human race. You have to fight for the chance. Although you alien races are powerful, you will have to pay a heavy price to destroy the human world. This is your chance. Let's kill a few Daozu first. Dongxian Daozu shouted aggressively. His body flashed, and he charged into the independent space where the alien race Daozu and the human race Daozu were fighting. The remaining pair of eyes of the three-eyed Daozu shot out black Xianguang. A godly aura that could destroy everything swept towards Dongxian Daozu. A black curtain surged out of Dark Mother Daozu's body, instantly colliding with three-eyed black fiend's divine might. The three-eyed black demon Daozu understood Dongxian Daozu's intentions. However, he had just been heavily injured by Dongxian Daozu and Mother Daozu and was unable to stop Dongxian Daozu. Instead, he was entangled by Mother Daozu and could not escape. Boom! Another spacetime collapse. Dongxian Daozu and a human Daozu leaped out of the void. A three-headed Daozu was sent flying out. Only 2 of its 3 heads were left, and one of its heads only had half of its head left. Clearly, it was severely wounded. Because Dongxian Daozu had shown an unexpectedly powerful strength, the overall strength of the Daozu of the human clan began to gain the upper hand. None of the foreign race cultivators had expected this to happen. They had planned to set up a trap and kill the human clan Daozu in one fell swoop, completely sweeping away all obstacles to their conquest of the human world. They had never imagined that the longevity lamp would damage the human clan Daozu of the human clan's strength as a whole, and that the scales of victory would tilt towards the human clan. Useless fools, as expected, unreliable. A cold voice suddenly rang out from the void. The voice contained a supreme will and an evil aura of the great Tao. All cultivators who heard this voice felt their Tao hearts tremble, and an indescribable fear welled up from the bottom of their hearts. While the voice was still reverberating, the endless void around Sichuan Mountain was instantly enveloped in a blood-red hue. A terrifying aura of death and violence enveloped the entire area. It felt as if they were in a huge tomb. The will and aura of death seeped into the minds of every human cultivator. Even the Daozu experts could not help but think of death. Their hearts were filled with the will to die, and their wills began to fade away as they lost control of their consciousness. Su Feng, who had been taken into the Tao Palace by Dongxian Daozu, was also affected by the will of death. His consciousness, which had been in a deep slumber, suddenly trembled. Bzzz. 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 The heavenly secret life shrinking technique flashed continuously in Su Feng's mind, causing Su Feng's fate to tremble as well. Because he had activated the longevity lamp, Su Feng's soul had been burned, and because the other Daozu had shaken the longevity lamp, his soul had been shaken, and he had lost consciousness. The longevity lamp had not swallowed many souls of the foreign race experts, but they were all powerful experts, and there were more than 30 Tao saints among them. The longevity lamp had refined the souls of these experts, turning them into pure soul energy that constantly nourished Su Feng's soul, allowing it to recover rapidly. At this moment, the power of fate caused Su Feng's consciousness to begin to awaken. Where am I? Whose aura is this? How can it cause the heavenly secret life shrinking technique to make such a huge commotion? This aura is so familiar. Su Feng sensed the evil will and aura, and his heart was in turmoil. This aura was extremely similar to the demon god's descent, but it was 10,000 times more powerful. Bzzzt. Bzzzt. The heavenly secret life shrinking technique's runes quickly condensed into a lifelike figure. This figure was incomparably familiar to Su Feng. It was the Divine Lord of 10 Directions. Su Feng, you're awake? The figure formed by Dongxian Daozu's will appeared in front of Su Feng. Master? Why have you come to the Western Mystic Divine Domain, or am I in Dongxian right now? Su Feng was both shocked and stunned. Dongxian Daozu released a strand of his will, projecting the events that had happened after Su Feng had lost consciousness into Su Feng's mind. I didn't expect so many things to happen after I lost consciousness. Great, the Western Mystic Mountain is saved. If nothing unexpected happened, that would be the case. But now, something unexpected has happened. A peerless expert of the foreign race has come, probably an immortal existence that surpasses Daozu. Even your master is now shackled in his world. Dongxian Daozu displayed his divine might, allowing Su Feng to see the scene outside. It's him, it really is him. The demon god's descent. Su Feng was deeply shocked. He was almost certain that the foreign race expert who had yet to appear was the descent, or rather, the source of his descent, the Divine Lord of 10 Directions. Didn't the Divine Lord of 10 Directions escape into the ruins of God? Why did he appear in the Western Mystic Mountain? Could the Divine Lord of 10 Directions be the expert behind the foreign race's invasion of the human world? Back then, the Divine Lord of 10 Directions was pursued by the experts of the 9 divine domains, but he wasn't even as strong as Daozu. Could he have surpassed Daozu and become an immortal existence now? Why does the evil aura have the Divine Lord of 10 Directions' destiny aura, but not the aura of Jiuxuan's unbounded scripture? Su Feng's heart was in turmoil, but at the same time, he was filled with endless doubts. However, The only thing Su Fang could do now was to watch. If even an expert like Daozu was shackled in the will and divine might of the Divine Lord of 10 Directions, what more a mere void Dao cultivator like him? Li Tian Daozu looked at the blood-dyed endless void, his eyes filled with shock and bewilderment. He shouted in a low voice, "The Divine Lord of 10 Directions, could it be you?" The young man from the Heaven's Fate platform had a bitter smile on his face. "It is indeed the destiny aura of the Divine Lord of 10 Directions. I didn't expect that the one who destroyed the human race was not the foreign race, but a human cultivator." Li Tian Daozu had pursued the Divine Lord of 10 Directions in the past, so the Daozu from the Heaven's Fate platform had already recognized the identity of the Divine Lord of 10 Directions from the evil aura. A cold voice reverberated in the surrounding void. "Li Tian, Tian Su, Mother of Darkness, all of you pursued me in the past. You didn't expect that I would return to the human world and destroy the human race with my own hands, right?" Li Tian Daozu snorted and said, "You brought calamity to the human race in the past. What's wrong with me pursuing you?" The young man from the Heaven's Fate platform called Tian Su sighed and said, "Back then, I had already predicted that the human race would face this calamity. You are the source of this calamity. That's why I invited the Daozu of the human race to pursue you. I didn't expect that my prediction would come true today. Forget it. I don't want to talk about the past anymore. Let the human race be annihilated from now on." As soon as the God Lord of 10 Directions finished speaking, a supreme divine might surged out from the surroundings of Dao Ancestor Heavenrake. Blood-red mist surged and quickly transformed into a bloody tomb that was thousands of feet in size. Within the blood tomb, there was a supreme truth of the heavenly Dao that could bury all things, as well as a powerful force that was extremely similar to the My Master's 10 Directions seal. It quickly turned from nothingness into reality and buried Dao Ancestor Li Tian within. "I belong to the Tensei people now. You dare to kill me? Aren't you afraid that the Tensei people will take revenge on you?" Li Tian Daozu shouted from within the blood tomb. "You are just an old man who is nearing the end of his lifespan. Why would the Tensei people care about you? If you had obediently stayed among the Tensei people, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. However, you chose to come to the human world. You are courting death. Don't blame me." The Divine Lord of 10 Directions' voice was still as cold as ever. It was filled with the aura of death. Boom, boom, boom. The blood tomb shook continuously. Clearly, Li Tian Daozu was continuously struggling and trying to break free from the shackles of the blood tomb. However, all his efforts were in vain. The blood tomb quickly stabilized. Then, a black tombstone rose from within the blood tomb. There was a line of divine characters condensed from blood on it. Li Tian's tomb of the human race. Just like that, a human Daozu was easily killed by the Divine Lord of 10 Directions. All the human Daozu and cultivators of the Western Mystery Mountain were shocked. Then, they fell into endless despair. Some of the human Daozu used peerless divine abilities or activated the Xian Bao. However, they couldn't shake the world of the Divine Lord of 10 Directions. "Dong Xian Daozu, it's your turn now. I can sense a threat from you." "Who is this person?" The Divine Lord of 10 Directions' cold and emotionless voice was suddenly filled with surprise and astonishment. A powerful force instantly descended and enveloped Dong Xian Daozu. It seeped into his Dao Palace and wrapped around Su Fang. Then, it forcefully pulled Dong Xian Daozu out of his Dao Palace. Even an expert like Daozu couldn't shake the Divine Lord of 10 Directions, let alone a Dao Void Realm cultivator like Su Fang. At this moment, he had become a weakling who couldn't resist at all. A sensing force lingered on Su Fang's body. Clearly, the Divine Lord of 10 Directions was sizing up Su Fang. After a long time, "I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. Is this the will of the heavens?" The Divine Lord of 10 Directions let out a long sigh. Suddenly, Chapter 31:20. The God Lord of 10 Directions suddenly said something that confused Su Fang. Then, he was about to kill Su Fang. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, the world of the God Lord of 10 Directions violently shuddered. Soon after, a wheel of light tore through the world of the God Lord of 10 Directions. The surrounding blood-colored world began to crumble, and everything returned to normal. The wheel of light constantly changed colors, exuding the aura of the great Tao of endless growth and myriad reincarnations. Its aura was frightening, surpassing even that of the Daozu. It exuded an aura of eternity and immortality. Su Fang was surprised and shocked. The despair in his eyes instantly disappeared, and he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Master is back. The other human Daozu were also stunned and overjoyed. The alien Daozu and the alien army were all shocked and subconsciously retreated. The Shi-Xian Daozu had returned. The wheel of light rapidly flashed and transformed into a figure. Who else could it be but the Shi-Xian Daozu? The Shi-Xian Daozu's appearance had changed greatly. He no longer had the appearance of an old man. Now, he had a head of black hair and a handsome face. His aura was incomparably ethereal, as if he existed in the ethereal heavenly Tao and did not belong to the real world. Greetings, Daozu. The 5 million Western Mystery Mountain cultivators who had survived all prostrated toward the Shi-Xian Daozu, all of them overjoyed and excited. God Lord of 10 Directions, didn't you order the alien army to attack Shi-Xian with the goal of drawing out this god? This god has returned, so why haven't you shown yourself? The Shi-Xian Daozu said majestically to the void. Upon hearing the Shi-Xian Daozu's words, the human Daozu finally understood that the alien army had attacked the Western Mystery Mountain not only to kill all the human Daozu, but also for another goal. The fact that the God Lord of 10 Directions drew Master out shows just how much importance he places on Master. Moreover, Master was able to easily destroy the world of the God Lord of 10 Directions. Could it be that Master has already taken that step and become the legendary immortal? Su Fang instantly came to an understanding, and intense shock arose in his heart once more. After that, wild joy surged into his heart. Immortal? Shi-Xian Daozu actually took that step and became the legendary immortal? Our human race has finally given birth to an undying. All the human Daozu were shocked, overjoyed, and exclaimed, "Greetings, human undying." Daofather Dongxian cupped his fists and bowed deeply towards Daofather Xishuan. The other Daozu experts, including the Dark Mother Daozu, also bowed to Shi-Xian Daozu. They were not just bowing to the Daozu of Shi-Xian, they were bowing to the future and hope of the human race. It was precisely because they didn't have any immortal realm warriors stronger than Daozu that the human race had been repeatedly invaded by the other races. Now that Shi-Xian Daozu had successfully taken that step, it meant that the calamity of the human race could finally be resolved. It also meant that the human world would no longer be threatened by the foreign races. Human undying? A figure appeared a dozen miles away from Shi-Xian Daozu. The figure seemed to be only a dozen miles away from Shi-Xian Daozu, but in reality, they were in different planes of time and space. It was a young man in a blood-red robe. His face was pale, and he was only 18 years old. He looked like a very ordinary human youth. However, many Tao ancestors could sense an incomparably evil aura under his seemingly ordinary appearance. Just a few more glances at him made their souls tremble constantly. God Master of 10 Directions, it really is him. But his presence is a bit strange. Immortal Realm Warrior, God Master of 10 Directions, has actually become a legendary Immortal Realm Warrior. The human Daozu experts who had once chased after God Master of 10 Directions all exclaimed. God Master of 10 Directions stared at Shi-Xian Daozu and coldly said, "You have not truly taken that step. You have reached the immortal realm, but unfortunately your cultivation and physical body are still not there. At most, you can only be considered a half-step immortal realm warrior." Shi-Xian Daozu snorted. That's right. This seat has indeed not reached the immortal realm, but I can stop you. If you had settled down for a few more epochs, you might have had a 30% chance of reaching the immortal realm. Now that you have appeared and fought with this lord, you have completely severed your chances of reaching the immortal realm. Are you so sure that you can defeat this seat? Don't forget that this is the Western profound divine realm. Whether or not I can defeat you will be known after we fight. God Master of 10 Directions took a step forward. He felt like he had instantly traveled through endless time and space to arrive at the space-time plane where Xixian Mountain was located. Boom! God Master of 10 Directions punched from a distance. This seemingly ordinary punch did not even cause the slightest ripple of air. It was not some supreme divine ability. However, this punch contained a supreme aura of the heavenly Tao. This punch exuded a terrifying feeling that it could destroy all things. Xixian Daozu stepped forward and began to battle with God Master of 10 Directions. Just like God Master of 10 Directions, Xixian Daozu did not use any powerful divine ability. Instead, he used a simple and unadorned fist technique. However, his fist technique contained the true essence of the heavenly Tao, the infinite transformations of all phenomena, and the true essence of eternity. Each punch was flawless. The great Tao was the simplest. The more powerful a Tao technique, the simpler it would become when pushed to the extreme. The clash between Xixian Daozu and God Master of 10 Directions seemed like a simple battle between two mortal martial artists, but the power contained within it was enough to instantly destroy a mystic world. The clash between these two could be said to be the most ultimate battle in the history of the human world. At the same time, it also concerned the fate of the human race. Every cultivator and foreign race cultivators stared at their every move. The ordinary foreign race cultivators and Western Black Mountain cultivators only glanced a few times before their eyes began to bleed. Their Tao palaces shuddered, and quite a few people had their wills crumbling and their Tao palaces shattering. Ordinary cultivators did not even have the right to watch a clash between immortals. Even if they were not affected by the shockwaves, just the true essence of the heavenly Tao radiated from the immortals. Every move was enough to injure ordinary cultivators. Even the Daozu experts began to tremble after watching for a while. Their faces were as pale as paper, and their bodies were drenched in sweat. But every single Daozu expert was staring with wide eyes at the clash between Xixian Daozu and God Master of 10 Directions, afraid that they would miss the smallest detail. Su Fang watched for a while, and then he felt like the world was spinning around him. His Tao palaces shuddered, and he was forced to isolate himself from the battle, not daring to take another glance. Pa, pa, pa. In a flash, Xixian Daozu and God Master of 10 Directions had exchanged more than 10,000 blows. Boom! God Master of 10 Directions punched Xixian Daozu in the chest, sending him flying. Xixian Daozu's retreating body tore through the void, shattering everything in his path. In the end, he retreated into the void and vanished without a trace. He was drawing the power of God Master of 10 Directions to another spacetime. Otherwise, the spacetime around Xixian Mountain would collapse, and the other human cultivators would be injured. A moment later, Xixian Daozu flashed out of the void once more. His aura was dispirited, and his entire body was shrouded in the aura of death. It was clear that he had been heavily injured by God Master of 10 Directions' punch. Just like the other human cultivators, Su Fang's heart sank. Master really is as God Master of 10 Directions said. He has not truly stepped into the immortal realm. God Master of 10 Directions looked at Xixian Daozu and sneered disdainfully. This lord has already said that a half-step immortal like you is no match for this lord. Forget it, let everything end. Killing you and these human Daozu is the same as completely cutting off the hope of the human race. This lord has also said it just now. Don't forget that this is my Xixian. Xixian Daozu revealed a domineering smile and suddenly waved his arm. Boom, boom, boom. Space-time trembled. Shi Xian Daozu had completely merged with the space-time of the Western profound divine domain. He controlled all the power in this space-time, and he was the ruler of all laws. Hiss hiss hiss. Waves of essence of the sealed world poured into Shi Xian Daozu's body, causing his originally dispirited aura to become vigorous again. In the entire Western profound divine domain, aside from Shi Xian Mountain, the essence of the sealed world was flowing away. It was rapidly withering, decaying, and turning into wastelands. Shi Xian Daozu said majestically, "This Lord's physical body and cultivation are indeed not at the immortal level, but this Lord has the Western profound divine domain, which is more than enough to make up for this shortcoming. Now that you are in this Lord's world, this Lord has the strength to fight you." A serious look appeared in God Lord Ten Directions' eyes, and then he smiled embarrassedly. "No wonder you returned to Shi Xian, even though you knew that this Lord was luring you out of Shi Xian Mountain. It turns out that you had long since planned to abandon the entire Western profound divine domain to fight this Lord. Unfortunately, you are still not enough. Let's talk after the battle." Shi Xian Daozu slowly took a step forward, his figure transcending the constraints of space and time, instantly appearing in front of God Lord Ten Directions. Boom boom boom. In just a few breaths, the two of them had each sent out more than 100,000 attacks. The surrounding space did not ripple at all. This was because the two of them had pushed their strength to the limit, so there was no leakage. Otherwise, a single aftershock would have been enough to seriously injure or even kill an expert like Daozu. Shi Xian Daozu was once again sent flying by God Lord Ten Directions' punch, his body smashing into the main peak of Shi Xian Mountain. The great array around the Shi Xian Mountain shattered, and all 1,080 peaks shattered. Even the main peak collapsed, leaving only half of it. "Master, this disciple is useless." The sovereign of the Shi Xian Mountain had already burned everything he had and was on the verge of death. As for that punishment elder, no one knew where he had fled to. Shi Xian Daozu sighed faintly. "You have already done your best. Let this Shi Xian Mountain become the burial ground of you and your master." God Lord Ten Directions let out a chilling voice as he took a step forward and charged into the interior of Shi Xian Mountain. Suddenly an earth-shaking commotion came from within the main peak of Shi Xian Mountain, which only had half of it left. At the same time, God Lord Ten Directions' shocked and furious voice rang out from within the mountain. "Shi Xian Daozu, you actually have a primordial heavenly treasure." Shi Xian Daozu's indifferent voice rang out. "When this seat was hunting you down the last time, I obtained this heaven-imprisoning cage in the depths of the primordial heavenly treasure. You probably never imagined that it would take the initiative to enter this seat's primordial heavenly treasure." Heaven-imprisoning cage? Even a primordial heavenly treasure cannot trap this seat. In less than 10,000 years, this seat will be able to break free of its shackles. At that time, you and the human race will be exterminated by this seat's hands. Chapter 31:21. Shi Xian Daozu, what are you trying to do? The Ten Directions Divine Lord realized what Shi Xian Daozu was trying to do, and his voice was tinged with panic. "This seat will use the entire Western profound divine realm and my own body to become one with the heaven-imprisoning cage. I will turn it into a seal that will imprison you for all eternity." Shi Xian Daozu's decisive and resolute voice rang out. Boom! The main peak of the Western profound mountain suddenly shattered. A thread-like object emerged from the shattered mountain. The threads were the color of primal chaos, and they contained an astonishing aura of eternity and the life energy of Shi Xian Daozu. They intertwined to form a giant cocoon-like cage. Boom boom boom! The Ten Directions Divine Lord furiously attacked the threads. However, the threads were incredibly tough. Not only did they not break, they swiftly intertwined and formed a cocoon that was 3,000 meters long. The Ten Directions Divine Lord roared furiously, "Shi Xian Daozu, you will undoubtedly die if you do this. If you can become eternal in the future, Why do you have to sacrifice your life for those ant-like humans? Shi Xian Daozu gloomily said, sacrificing this ancestor in exchange for the continuation of the human race is worth it. You old lunatic, you won't be able to seal this seat for long. In 10 million years at most, this seat will be able to break through the seal of your primordial heavenly treasure. At that time, this seat will definitely exterminate the human race. Divine Lord 10 Directions, you talk too much. Seal. Shi Xian Daozu coldly shouted, and the cocoon stabilized. No more activity came from within the cocoon. All the human cultivators and non-human cultivators were deeply shocked and surprised. Master. Su Fong knelt down in front of the giant cocoon. Scenes of meeting Shi Xian Daozu since Su Fong met him appeared in his mind. Hot tears flowed down his cheeks. Shi Xian Daozu had always been Su Fong's pillar. But now, in order to save the human race, Shi Xian Daozu had turned himself into a seal and merged with the primordial heavenly treasure, trapping the 10 Directions Divine Lord within. Su Fong felt like the entire world was collapsing. Master. Lord Daozu. The wine saint and the cultivators of the western mystic mountain knelt before the cocoon and wept. Old fogey, when you took that step, this ancestor wasn't convinced. Now this ancestor is convinced. Accept this ancestor's bow. Dongxian Daozu's eyes shone brightly as he knelt on one knee in front of the cocoon. The other human Daozu, including the one on the Heaven's Fate platform, also knelt down. Old thing, how could you be so heartless to abandon me like this? Forget it, you have been accommodating me your entire life. This time, I will accommodate you for once and come to accompany you. This way, you won't be lonely anymore. Daozu the Dark Mother let out a faint voice. A black shadow flashed and flew towards the cocoon. Dark Mother Daozu actually planned to sacrifice herself. Mother Dark, quickly stop. Dongxian Daozu and the other human Daozu were all shocked and shouted out to stop him. Dark Mother Daozu instantly appeared near the cocoon, turned into a black curtain, and was about to merge into the cocoon. Suddenly the cocoon shook and the black curtain was shaken away. The black curtain condensed into Dark Mother Daozu's figure. It was unknown what had happened, but Dao Ancestor Dark Mother fell silent for a moment, then actually dispelled the idea. Her figure suddenly flashed, disappearing without a trace. At this time, because the Western Profound Divine Realm's origin energy had been completely absorbed by the Western Profound Daozu, space-time started to collapse. Lord Divine Master has been sealed. The human world will not be able to break through for now. Let's go. Daozu the Mayfly race ordered the foreign race army to retreat from the Western Profound Divine Realm. But at this time, the Heaven's Fate platform expert, Tian Su, coldly said, "You almost destroyed the human world. How can we let you leave so easily? Spider, devour their karmic luck." Hiss hiss hiss. The 1,000-meter-long spider suddenly opened its mouth and spat out countless invisible threads, which wove into a boundless net and enveloped countless non-humankind cultivators. The karmic luck of the foreign race cultivators was wildly devoured by the spider. Tens of thousands of foreign race cultivators were decayed by the power of calamity and decay brought about by the spider, and a foul stench filled the air. Tian Su, I will remember you. Daozu the Mayfly race expert roared. His mouth suddenly cracked open, and his entire head turned into the shape of an ant. He looked hideous and ugly. ZZZT. Daozu the Mayfly race expert opened his mouth and bit at the air. A fierce aura erupted from his mouth and bit through all the threads the spider had shot out. Daozu the Mayfly race expert also acted, sucking the foreign race cultivators into the Dao Palace and leaving the Western Profound Divine Realm in a hurry. Su Fong, let's go. Dongxian Daozu sighed and was about to suck Su Fong into the Dao Palace. Su Fong looked at the giant cocoon in the distance, his heart filled with grief. He found it hard to accept this reality. Suddenly a thought suddenly flashed into the interior of Su Fong's Dao Palace. That thought was so intangible that even Dongxian Daozu failed to detect it. Su Fang was stunned. His deep eyes flashed with hale and hearty light. Then, he was sucked into Dongxian Daozu's Dao Palace. Then, Dao ancestor Dongxian unleashed another wave of divine might, sucking all the cultivators of the Western Mystic Mountain into his body. Following the other Dao ancestor experts, they quickly left the utterly destroyed Western Mystic Divine Realm. Whoosh! Dongxian Daozu appeared in the chaotic void outside the realm. The other human Daozu also appeared. A human Daozu said to Dongxian Daozu, the human race's calamity has been resolved for now. It is time for you to fulfill your promise. Of course, I will fulfill my promise. However, do not think that the human race's calamity has been resolved just like that. The 10 Directions Divine Lord's words are most likely true. In 10 million years, if no one in the human race can take that step and become immortal, the human race will still be in danger. I hope that this time Mirage will be able to help all of you become immortal within 10 million years. Dongxian Daozu sighed deeply. With a wave of his hand, jade slips flew to the human Daozu expert. After the Daozu experts checked the jade slips, they were all delighted. They cupped their fists and thanked Dongxian Daozu. Some Daozu immediately took their leave after receiving the time mirage. However, a red-robed middle-aged Daozu, Tian Su Daozu of the heavens will platform, and Mother Dark stayed behind. The red-robed middle-aged Daozu looked at Dongxian Daozu and said, Dongxian Daozu, tell Su Fang to come out. This ancestor has something to say to him. Dongxian Daozu raised an eyebrow and said indifferently, What is it, Qi Tian Daozu? Su Fang is this ancestor's disciple. You can tell this ancestor directly if you have something to say. The middle-aged Daozu was the master of Qi Tian Divine Realm, Qi Tian Daozu. Qi Tian Daozu nodded and said, Then this ancestor will speak frankly. As you said, the human race is still in danger. Only an immortal can truly resolve the crisis. Dongxian Daozu snorted and said, Are you confident that you can become immortal within 10 million years? Qi Tian Daozu shook his head and said, This ancestor does not have the slightest confidence. However, if I can obtain a supreme Xian Bao, this ancestor may have the strength to fight against the 10 Directions Divine Lord. A grand mist heavenly treasure? Dongxian Daozu was stunned. Then, his eyes turned cold and he said, Qi Tian Daozu, are you trying to steal Su Fang's longevity lamp? Qi Tian Daozu said embarrassedly, This ancestor is doing this for the sake of the human race. How is this stealing? In the hands of a mere Dao Void expert like Su Fang, the longevity lamp will not be able to unleash its true power. If it is in this ancestor's hands, it will be enough to threaten the 10 Directions Divine Lord. For the sake of the human race. Shut up! Dongxian Daozu shouted angrily and interrupted Qi Tian Daozu. Xian Daozu sacrificed himself for the sake of the human race and sealed the 10 Directions Divine Lord. If you are truly doing this for the sake of the human race, then go and kill that alien Daozu right now. However, you are trying to steal the supreme Xian Bao of Xian Daozu's disciple. How can such a despicable and shameless person take that step and become an immortal? Dongxian Daozu, are you some kind of saint when you describe me as such? Didn't you take Su Fang away because you want the longevity lamp as well? Dongxian Daozu shouted with killing intent, You are measuring the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. Scram! If you dare to steal the longevity lamp, I will kill my way to Qi Tian Divine Region and kill you at all costs. I can severely injure a peak stage Daozu, so killing an ordinary Daozu like you is a piece of cake. Humph! Qi Tian Daozu let out a strange snort of laughter. The Dark Mother Daozu suddenly spoke up, Qi Tian, if you dare to steal Su Fang, I will join forces with Dongxian Daozu to kill our way to Qi Tian Divine Region and destroy your legacy. Qi Tian Daozu frowned. Tian Su Daozu from the Heaven's Fate stage said indifferently, Qi Tian Daozu, I have to warn you. Even though the human race is no longer bound by the laws of the Jioshuan continent, justice is in the hearts of the people. If you really do that, you will count me in as well. This is the only chance to resolve the human race's crisis, but you are abandoning it. Just pretend that I didn't say anything. Just wait for the human race to be destroyed by the 10 directions Divine Lord millions of years later, Qi Tian Daozu said angrily before he left with a flick of his sleeves. The great Daozu is such a despicable person. Dongxian Daozu's anger still hadn't subsided and he spat. Tian Su Daozu said, "There are peerless heroes like Shi Xian Daozu among the human race. Naturally, there are despicable people like Qi Tian as well. It's not surprising. Not only Qi Tian, there are also many human Daozu coveting the longevity lamp. Dongxian Daozu, tell Su Fang to come out. I have something to say to him." Dongxian Daozu raised his eyebrows. What? Even Lord Tian Su is coveting the longevity lamp? Tian Su shook his head and smiled. How can the great Tao that I cultivate be tainted with such karma? Besides, Autark Xian Bao may be powerful, but I don't care about him. I won't steal the fortune of a cultivator who has just made a great contribution to the human race. That's for the best. Dongxian Daozu, let Su Fang out of the Dao Palace. Tian Su Daozu nodded at Su Fang and said, "Take out your luck spider." Luck spider? Su Fang was stunned. He didn't understand what Tian Su Daozu was trying to do. He waved his hand and summoned his luck spider. Daofather Celestial Su released his giant weaver spider as well. Chapter 31-22. Who would have thought that the two spiders would start fighting as soon as they saw each other? Su Fangdao was shocked and was about to recall the spiders when Tian Su Daozu suddenly spoke up. "Don't worry." Su Fang dismissed the idea and glared at the spiders. The two spiders pounced on each other. They didn't kill each other as Su Fang had expected. Instead, they played and played with each other. They looked very happy. Su Fang was shocked and stunned. Tian Su said, "Weaver spiders are the pinnacle of life in the chaos and exist in the void. It is the fortune of the human race to have 2 weaver spiders. How could a race with such fortune be destroyed?" Dongxian Daozu and Dark Mother Daozu both nodded, agreeing with Tian Su's words. The 2 spiders played for a while, then suddenly separated. The giant spider opened its mouth and spat out a thick cloud of purple qi. It instantly enveloped Su Fang's spider. Su Fang was shocked again. Tian Su said, "Su Fang, if not for you, not only would no one in Western Mystery Mountain be spared, but the other races wouldn't have been forced to retreat with such heavy losses. I don't have anything good to give you for such a great service. I'll give all the fortune of the other race cultivators I devoured to your spider." Su Fang was overjoyed. Previously, Tian Su's spider had devoured the karmic luck of countless cultivators of other races, including Dao saints and Dao ancestors of other races. Daofather Hevensu had actually given such a vast amount of karmic luck to Su Fang's spider. The fortune that Su Fang's spiders had received was astonishing. Su Fang's spiders seemed to be drunk after inhaling so much purple qi. They fell unconscious, unable to devour so much fortune at once. Su Fang sucked the spiders into his Dao palace and let them slowly digest the fortune. When the spiders woke up again, they would undergo another shocking transformation. At that time, when the fortune spider combined with the purple fate Dharma body, how powerful would the fortune bane wheel be? Su Fang's heart was filled with anticipation. "Thank you, Lord Tian Su." Su Fang cupped his fists and thanked Tian Daozu. Dongxian Daozu snorted, "What's there to thank? The people from Heaven's Fate platform don't do anything without benefit. Because they can see that your future is limitless, they decided to give you some benefits and form karma with you. In the future, they'll be able to get 10 times, 100 times more benefits from you." Tian Su Daozu smiled embarrassedly and did not argue for himself. He stared at Su Fang and said, "Although you are only a void Dao cultivator, I can't see your destiny clearly, and it's even harder for me to see your future. Perhaps in the future, the human race will have to depend on you to resolve the crisis. By helping you, I'm also helping the human race. You don't have to thank me. Dongxian Daozu's deep eyes were filled with shock. He looked at Su Fang a few more times. Su Fang said embarrassedly, I'm only a void Dao cultivator. How can I possibly have the ability to resolve the crisis of the human race? Lord, I was just about to ask you for guidance on the life-shrinking technique and the mystery of heaven's divination. Tian Su shook his head and smiled. Different people cultivate the life-shrinking technique and the mystery of heaven's divination. They have different understandings of destiny and the mysteries of heaven. My guidance on your cultivation will interfere with your destiny and the mysteries of heaven. You need to control your own destiny. Therefore, you can only rely on yourself to figure out your own cultivation. Within 10,000 years, you will encounter a great calamity. You must be careful. Tao Ancestor Heavenly Su instructed Su Fang before his body, along with the lotus platform and spider beneath him, rapidly turned into nothingness. Then, he disappeared without a trace. Just as Tian Su Daozu left, Mother Daozu sent a thought to Su Fang. Work hard. Do not waste your master's good intentions. If you have time, go to Yuxian to visit your senior sister. She misses you greatly, yes? Shermu. Su Fang respectfully bowed to Mother Daozu with folded hands. Then Mother Daozu looked at Dongxian Daozu. Come back to Shixian in 10,000 years. When the time comes, it will be another battle of life and death. Dongxian Daozu nodded and sighed. Mother Daozu looked at the chaos of nothingness as though she could see through everything. Old ghost, you sacrificed yourself to win 10,000 years of breathing time for the human race. Is it worth it? I hope you are not lying to me. If I don't see you in 10,000 years, don't blame me for being impolite. Her voice started to fade away and her figure started to blur. Go. The Western Xian Divine Region no longer exists. From now on, the Eastern Xian Heavenly Pavilion will be your home. Dongxian Daozu swept out a ray of starlight and enveloped Su Fang. Then, he disappeared into the chaos of nothingness. When Su Fang reappeared, he was in front of a majestic palace. Heavenly Pavilion. Dongxian Daozu had brought Su Fang directly to Heavenly Pavilion. Wait here. I will send someone to bring you to your training ground. You can stay in Heavenly Pavilion. I will also take care of the Western Xian mountain cultivators. If there is anything, you can find Tua Qianji directly. Dongxian Daozu nodded at Su Fang and flashed into Heavenly Pavilion. Su Fang stared at Heavenly Pavilion. He had seen the projection of Heavenly Pavilion before, but this was the first time he saw its true appearance. He could not help but be shocked by its majestic and powerful aura. Heavenly Pavilion was a huge palace. It emitted rays of dazzling starlight, making Heavenly Pavilion look golden and dazzling. Heavenly Pavilion was surrounded by layers of star fog, which added to its mysteriousness. The huge palace exuded a majestic aura like that of the Heavenly Tao. Su Fang could not help but feel a sense of awe. Just as Su Fang was sizing up Heavenly Pavilion, a group of young disciples flew out from a side door. Su Fang could not help but smile at the sight of those high-spirited young elites. After experiencing a life-and-death battle and witnessing the fall of countless experts, Su Fang felt like he had returned to reality from an illusion when he saw these young geniuses. The geniuses of Heavenly Pavilion also noticed Su Fang and swept Su Fang with their divine light. Who is that person? How dare he spy on Heavenly Pavilion so brazenly? Look at how down and out he is. He must be a disciple of some force who wants to enter Heavenly Pavilion. What kind of place is East Mysterious Pavilion? Other than peerless geniuses like us, how can ordinary cultivators enter? Such a person standing in front of Heavenly Pavilion's door is damaging to the pavilion's dignity. Get someone to chase him away quickly. Hold on, why does this person look so familiar? When the geniuses of Heavenly Pavilion saw Su Fang's dispirited and disheveled appearance, they all despised and mocked him. Suddenly, the ancient main door of Heavenly Pavilion rumbled loudly before it slowly opened, emitting a dazzling starlight that illuminated the surroundings. The geniuses of Heavenly Pavilion were all shocked and aghast. Since the establishment of Heavenly Pavilion, the number of times the main door had been opened could be counted with one's fingers. Even the divine saint experts who came to Heavenly Pavilion had to use the side door, and were not qualified to enter through the main door. Every time the main door opened, it was because other Daozu experts had arrived at Dongxian that the main door was opened to show their respect. Could a Daozu expert have come to Dongxian? According to the records, the main door was always opened because of the arrival of Daozu experts. How can it be an exception this time? The geniuses of Heavenly Pavilion were in an uproar. The commotion at the main door also alerted the other geniuses and elders of East Mysterious Pavilion. They appeared from the side doors and looked around, intending to catch a glimpse of Daozu's magnificence. When Su Fang heard the conversation of the geniuses of Heavenly Pavilion with his perfect hearing, he was also surprised. The battle of Sichuan Mountain has just ended. Which Daozu has suddenly come to East Mysterious Pavilion? At this moment, a handsome genius with an extraordinary aura flew over and shouted angrily at Su Fang, "Do you want to die? An expert has come to Heavenly Pavilion. Why aren't you leaving?" Su Fang smiled awkwardly and flew to a side door on the left. Which arrogant person dares to behave atrociously in front of Heavenly Pavilion? Being ignored by Su Fang, the handsome genius felt embarrassed in front of the crowd. He separated his hands, and his thoughts turned into two Xian Guang, one black and one white. With the terrifying power of yin and yang reversal, they descended upon Su Fang. Su Fang's brows furrowed as he waved his hand, easily dispersing the attack of the handsome genius, and the remaining force blasted the genius flying. Su Fang's true ability now could fight a divine saint upper realm expert, while the Heavenly Pavilion genius was only at the height of intermediate Daozu. Su Fang could kill him with just a thought. A void Dao expert. One of the elders saw through Su Fang's cultivation and immediately cried out in alarm. All the Heavenly Pavilion cultivators' gazes were drawn over. Su Fang? Stop. He's Daozu's disciple, humanity's top genius. Su Fang. A middle-aged man flew out of the crowd and cupped his fists respectfully at Su Fang. Greetings, Su Fang Da. Su Fang's divine light swept over the old man, and he could not help being surprised. Coincidentally, this old man was even an acquaintance of his. The middle-aged man wore a simple gray Taoist robe and had a kind and amiable appearance. He was precisely the expert under Exalted Venerable Spring-Autumn, Mr. E. Back then, under Exalted Venerable Spring-Autumn's assignment, he laid down the inverting yin-yang grand array and almost suppressed Su Fang. He did not expect to run into him the moment he arrived at Heavenly Pavilion. At that time, Mr. E was high and mighty, looking down on Su Fang as an ant. Now, Su Fang could see through his cultivation base at a glance. It was just intermediate Dao profound realm. Su Fang only needed a thought to suppress him. Now, Su Fang and the other party had completely swapped positions. Su Fang became an expert that needed Mr. E to look up to, making Su Fang himself have no choice but to sigh at the fickleness of the world. That's right, he's Su Fang. Everyone was in an uproar. Gazes filled with surprise and curiosity looked at Su Fang one after another. Su Fang rose up in the Eastern Xian divine realm, his name shaking the human world of Jiuquan. However, there were not many cultivators in Heavenly Pavilion who had truly seen Su Fang. Moreover, most of the matters regarding Su Fang were rumors. There were also some secrets that only the upper echelons knew. Ordinary Heavenly Pavilion cultivators naturally had no way of knowing. Hence, the gazes that everyone looked at Su Fang with were mostly curiosity and some doubt. Bring me to see Lord Tuo Qianji. Su Fang said to Mr. E. Mr. E hurriedly agreed. Yes. He was bringing Su Fang towards the side door. Suddenly, Tua Qianji's hearty laughter came from the main door. No need. The sovereign and the upper echelons have personally come to welcome you. Whoosh from the starlight in front of them, figures flew out one after another. There were a total of 12 people, all of them Dao Saint experts. The 3 elders in the lead were shockingly at the peak of Dao Saint. Chapter 31-23. Many Heaven Pavilion cultivators originally thought that a Daozu cultivator had arrived. Only now did they realize that Heaven Pavilion's main door had opened wide not to welcome some Daozu, but to welcome Su Fang. A disciple of Daozu actually enjoyed the special honor that only a Daozu cultivator could have. Everyone was shocked, and they looked at Su Fang with eyes full of disbelief. The genius who attacked Su Fang just now felt a boom in his head. His entire body trembled, and he almost fainted. As soon as the 12 Eastern Profound Heaven Pavilion cultivators appeared, they immediately fixed their eyes on Su Fang. Su Fang could sense that most of the higher-ups were filled with curiosity and shock. However, there was a young man in a starry robe who had reached the upper divine saint realm who looked at him coldly. It was obvious that he was hostile towards him. The sovereign of Heaven Pavilion nodded at Su Fang with a smile. Junior brother Su Fang, this is your first time in Heaven Pavilion, and I've made you wait for so long without holding a grand ceremony. As your senior brother, I've neglected you. Please don't take it to heart. Su Fang greets senior brother sovereign. Su Fang hurriedly cupped his fists in return. The sovereign of Heaven Pavilion was also a disciple of Dongxian Daozu, so he was naturally Su Fang's senior brother. Su Fang looked at the sovereign of Heaven Pavilion and immediately thought of the Western Profound Mountains sovereign and En Patian who had died. His heart throbbed with pain. The sovereign stroked his white beard and chuckled. Master personally issued a decree for the Migres Star to vacate half of the training grounds for junior brother Su Fang and the Western Profound cultivators to live in. From this, it can be seen how much Master dotes on junior brother. Even I can't help but be jealous. The other 11 authorities wore envious looks too. However, some were deliberately acting like this to ease the atmosphere, while others were truly jealous. When the Heaven Pavilion cultivators heard the sovereign's words, they were also extremely shocked. The way they looked at Su Fang instantly changed and was filled with reverence. As for the disciple who had attacked Su Fang, he fainted. Why was that? The Eastern Profound Heavenly Pavilion was not as simple as it looked on the surface. Inside there was a world of its own. The internal space of Heaven Pavilion was actually a vast starry sky. The 7 stars, Dubhe, Merak, Phecta, Migres, Alioth, Mizar and Alcade, were the 7 great dojos. The 12 magnates of Heaven Pavilion all lived above the 7 stars. The 7 stars were ranked differently. They lived in different places, had different statuses, and had different positions of power. The Dubhe star was where the power of the Heaven Pavilion was concentrated. The sovereign lived on the Dubhe star. Although Tua Qianji was a divine saint, he was not ranked high among the giants of Heaven Pavilion. However, his identity was a little special. He was in charge of handling the affairs of the Heaven Pavilion and was equivalent to the assistant of the Heaven Pavilion's sovereign. Hence, his position was second only to the 3-peak divine saint. Hence, he also lived on the Migres planet. The other 2 grand elders lived on Merak and Phecta, respectively. The Migres planet was second only to the Dubhe star, Merak star and Phecta star. The strength, status, and power of the Migres planet's master were second only to the grand elders. As soon as Su Fang arrived at the Eastern Profound Heavenly Pavilion, Dongxian Daozu personally arranged for him to live on the Migres planet. This showed how much importance he attached to Su Fang. It was no wonder that the giants were jealous. At the same time, Su Fang also understood why the star-robed youth was hostile to him. If he guessed correctly, this person should be the master of the Migres planet. No one would be happy to have half of their training grounds taken away from them all of a sudden, other than Tua Qianji, the sovereign, and the other two grand elders, who knew about Su Fang's true strength and the great contributions Su Fang had made to Dongxian Daozu and Heaven Pavilion. The other higher-ups did not know much. Su Fang was only a void Dao cultivator. As soon as he arrived at the Eastern Profound Divine Realm, he stood side by side with the Master of the Migres planet. How could the Master of the Migres planet and the other giants be convinced? The Master of the Migres planet did not dare to complain about Dongxian Daozu, so he naturally transferred his anger to Su Fang. Su Fang frowned. From now on, the Eastern Profound Heavenly Pavilion would not be so peaceful. It did not matter where Su Fang lived. However, with so many Western Profound Mountain cultivators, Su Fang could not ignore them and had to give them a proper place to stay. Su Fang was naturally very satisfied with Dongxian Daozu's arrangement. However, this would involve a struggle for benefits, and there would be endless trouble. Daozu decrees that from today onwards, Su Fang is the Deputy Star Master of the Migres planet. You are not to be negligent. If you are rude to him, even if Lord Daozu does not pursue the matter, I will not let you off easily. The sovereign of the Heaven Pavilion seemed to have changed into a different person all of a sudden. He shouted at the many Heaven Pavilion cultivators around him, his supreme majesty completely revealed. Greetings, Deputy Star Master Su Fang. Many Heaven Pavilion cultivators were solemn as they cupped their fists and bowed to Su Fang. From now on, the Eastern Profound Heavenly Pavilion had one more giant. Junior brother Su Fang, let's go. Senior brother will accompany you to the Migres planet. The sovereign looked at Su Fang and nodded with a smile. Many thanks, senior brother. Many thanks to the higher-ups of the Heaven Pavilion. Su Fang is new here, so please take care of him in the future. This is just a small token of my respect. Su Fang looked politely at the 12 giants, then waved his hand and sent Xian Guang flying toward them. Su Fang gave them pills, and all of them were king-grade pills. There were a total of 12 giants in the Heaven Pavilion. The Sovereign, Tianxian, Tianji, and the Migres Planet Master each received 20 king-grade pills, while the others received 10 each. Su Fang had killed 1,000,000 soldiers of the foreign tribes and obtained the countless years of accumulation of the Western Profound Mountain from the Sovereign. He naturally had no lack of king-grade pills. There were very few pills that Dao Saints could use for their cultivation, and only king-grade pills could be used. A single king-grade pill was extremely precious, not to mention that Su Fang had given him 10 or 20 pills. Naturally, his heart ached. However, it was necessary and worthwhile to spend some king-grade pills to resolve a lot of problems. Su Fang was not afraid of trouble, but the Western Profound Mountain cultivators were living under someone else's roof, so Su Fang had to think for them. Many giants grabbed the pills and were overjoyed. With their status, it was not that they did not have king-grade pills, but what they cared about was face. How could these giants not be happy with Su Fang's attitude? Little did they know the star-robed youth flicked his sleeve and took the pills back. He sneered disdainfully. I'm not a beggar. I don't need charity from others. Su Fang raised his eyebrows, then smiled awkwardly and put away the pills. The sovereign glanced at the star-robed youth and then said to Su Fang, "The Migres Planet Master has encountered some shackles in his cultivation recently and is in a bad mood. Junior brother Su Fang, please don't take it to heart." "It's fine." Su Fang smiled lightly. The star-robed youth's actions were clearly a slap to Su Fang's face in front of everyone. Su Fang had to swallow this for the sake of the Western Profound Mountain cultivators. "Junior brother Su Fang, come with us." The sovereign pulled Su Fang and walked side by side through the dazzling main door. The other Dao Saints also followed and disappeared into the starlight. The moment Su Fang entered through the main door, the scene in front of him immediately changed drastically. In the vast and boundless space, the stars were dazzling and boundless. Countless stars were hanging in the void, shining brightly. Su Fang quickly discovered that the stars were arranged in a strange pattern, containing the true meaning of the great Tao and endless mysteries of the heavenly Tao. The stars were beating like hearts, like the sound of the heavenly Tao. In the starry sky, 7 shining stars were arranged in the shape of a giant spoon. That was where the higher-ups of Heaven Pavilion were located, the 7 stars of Heaven Pavilion. Su Fang followed the sovereign and the other giants to Migres planet, which was in the 4th position. Su Fang fixed his eyes on it. Through the barrier outside the planet, he could see the ground, forests, mountains, and oceans on the planet. He could also see the dojos and cities. On the east side of Migres planet, countless cultivators were hurriedly flying. They looked like a group of ants moving houses. Daozu gave the order as soon as he came back. Time was tight and he didn't have time to vacate the dojos. Junior brother Su Fang, please bear with it for now, the sovereign said. Then he took out a token and gave it to Su Fang. Su Fang caught the token and said with a smile, "It's all right." The star-robed young man snorted coldly and flew towards Migres planet, disappearing into the west side of the planet. The other giants also left, leaving only Tuo Qianji behind. Tuo Qianji sent a voice transmission to Su Fang. "Su Fang, the lord of Migres planet is arrogant and looks down on everything. This time, Daozu gave you half of Migres planet, so he will definitely hold a grudge. You are new here, so you must be careful." In the western profound divine realm, Su Fang had saved Tuo Qianji's life. Moreover, Tuo Qianji had seen Su Fang's overall strength with his own eyes. He was very clear about Su Fang's position in Dongxian Daozu's heart. Therefore, he was very grateful and respectful towards Su Fang. He spoke bluntly. "Many thanks for Lord Tuo Qianji's reminder." Su Fang smiled embarrassedly. He didn't take Tuo Qianji's words to heart. Only now did Tuo Qianji realize that Su Fang was not a pushover. Now that he was living on Migres planet, it was the Lord of Migres planet that had to be careful, not Su Fang. Su Fang activated the token, and a protective aura immediately covered his body. Then he calmly passed through the barrier and entered the inner space of Migres planet. To the east of Migres planet, Su Fang found a towering peak in the vast ocean and settled down in the abode left behind by the cultivators of Migres planet. In the abode, Su Fang created a formation and then sat down cross-legged. He formed a thought and entered the Tao Palace. There was a wheel of light floating inside the Tao Palace. There was an old person sitting cross-legged inside the wheel of light. It was Shi Xian Daozu. Of course, this was not Shi Xian Daozu's true body, but an illusion of his thought. "Master!" Su Fang knelt towards Shi Xian Daozu's figure, his heart filled with pain. Shi Xian Daozu's thought would die sooner or later because of the death of his true body. Su Fang naturally felt great grief. Shi Xian Daozu said in a serene voice, "Su Fang, you should be happy for Master. Why are you like this? Master, did you really merge yourself with the heaven imprisoning cage and become a seal?"